Welcome back to an episode of the Scoop College Basketball Podcast presented by Hoop Scoop Media. And it has been a little bit since our last podcast, longer than we'd like, but we're going to try to start cranking them out. But we have a lot to talk about today because the NBA draft deadline was yesterday. So basically, prospects had to declare yesterday whether they are staying in the draft and foregoing their remaining eligibility or returning back to college for another season. The portal deadline to enter passed about 3 weeks ago. Now, grads can still enter, and some have been, but most of that stuff's out of the way. Most people have committed. There are still a few left that we will touch on later, but first, speaking of the portal, we assembled a few portal winners and portal losers. So teams that won the portal and lost the portal with their classes. So how do we want to do this, Dan?
Well, what do you want to cap our number to share? Like I have a couple in each category. I didn't want to go too crazy, but we can lob them back and forth. We can stick in like one winner category and one loser category and do that at a time, kind of draft winners and losers.
Yeah, I had 7 winners and 5 losers. How many did you assemble?
I started with two of each that I absolutely want to get in, and then I have a couple like
Okay.
I didn't create the same starting five of each that you did, but I have ones that I feel more strongly about. So
Well, what's the winner that you feel the most strongly about?
well, it's not easy to call it a single like rank them the single most, but I think West Virginia was one I absolutely wanted to put in.
That
This
was the
was
first one
something,
I had down.
yeah, West Virginia was one that I absolutely wanted to take for a winner. It was such a busy portal season for the Mountaineers prior to Bob Huggins' unfortunate comments on live radio. He did good work in the transfer portal. Like I got to give him credit on that. Jesse Edwards, nearly 15 points a game at Syracuse. Hofstra's Omar Silverio, I'm very familiar with, and that was another good get from a player from a school in New York. Raekwon Battle was a high scorer at Montana State. A lot of ways you can go with this one. I mean, even the pickup they made from Arizona was a Krisa. He had like he was a really big good rebounder and score as well. So I think all in all, WVU gets high marks from me because in the Big 12, number one conference in the land, you need to make something shake in the portal in order to kind of change the fortunes from maybe the middle to back end of the conference to make a run for it. So this was really good for West Virginia this offseason.
And they also got Jose Perez, who like he committed like a while ago, but I mean
Yeah, no,
he
that's
didn't
important.
he
Yep.
didn't end up playing, so I guess you could count him part of his portal class. I'm not like super high on Perez individually, but like he's still a fine player at West Virginia. Yeah, Edwards is the one I really like. Like he is a dominant rim protector, pretty efficient from the field. Um, Battle can really score the ball. Interested to see how he does coming back to like the Power Five level, Power Six, because he started out at Washington, didn't really do much. Transfer down was really good, but I think like his skill set translates. Like he can like really create shots, pretty athletic. He's not just like a mid major that just like is not like super athletic. Like he has some athleticism to him. And yeah, Silverio probably won't play a ton, but he can shoot it. And yeah, Krisa, still the jury's still out on like what kind of impact he brings. Is he a winning contributor? But like he at worst he's a solid shooter and passer. So like okay, so I'll say one of my winners next, so we can kind of switch off here. I have LSU as a winner.
Mhm.
They brought in Jalen Cook, Carlos Stewart, Will Baker, Jordan Wright, Damian Collins, and Hunter Dean. And the pickup I'm really excited about is Jalen Cook because it's another one. He started out at LSU under the Will Wade tenure. He
Mhm.
transferred to Tulane after he didn't really get minutes, but like he can really score the ball. He's like a super explosive small guard. Like he can get buckets, and I think he'll translate right up. He was probably always like a high major player. He just was some guys just like aren't good their freshman year and don't want to stick around. Also, like LSU was the only place he could have transferred and played right away. So because
Right.
I don't think he's a grad. I think he's been in college 3 years. And yeah, There are other guys, Carlos Stewart, really good player at Santa Clara, really nice add to that backcourt. Jordan Wright, I mean, we've already seen him be like a good SEC player. Um, Damian Collins is he was not that good at Kentucky, like from a productive standpoint, but like he's super athletic. Like definitely someone that hypothetically could be good. Like I don't know if it's gonna happen, but it was definitely worth taking. Um Will Baker is another guy I really like from Nevada, all Mountain West guy. I mean, has already proved he's been like a really solid center on a pretty good Nevada team. Spent some time in the Power Six as well at Texas, and Hunter Dean is just like a solid backup. Like, uh, considering like what the backup centers out there are going for, like he's a solid take. Was LSU one of your teams?
LSU was on my radar, but it was not one of my top two, three that I was referencing as we introduced the segment. I mean, if my next one in that top two, three was Kansas, and Hunter Dickinson pushed Kansas over the top. I mean, it's a I'm calling it a class. It's really I mean, it's a good group, but it's Dickinson really put them over the edge for me. Of course, he was one of the biggest moves in the portal this offseason. Nicholas Timberlake, guy mentioned another CEA player coming over from Towson. Thought that was big. So combination of those two especially, and they picked up Arterio Morris from Texas. So Kansas was well off to begin with, obviously, to an extent, but I thought as soon as Dickinson became a Jayhawk, that put Kansas on high up on the winners poll for me.
They also got Parker Brown, Christian Brown's brother.
Yep.
And I've seen like a lot of people kind of hating on that pickup because like I mean they probably took him because it's his brother, but like he played like 30 minutes a
Yeah,
game at Santa Clara, which was a top 100 team the past 2 years. Like, yeah, maybe they're like mostly taking him like they already have the connection there, but like he's from the area, like he's like he would be a guy that they would probably look at as their like backup center who's wants to play like 10 minutes a game,
sure.
like even without their relation. I mean, like Dickinson can play like 30 minutes, so they're not gonna need that much out of Brown, but like he's a solid depth piece for sure. And yeah, I really like their class. Like I'm really high on Arterio Morris. I think like he just wasn't in a spot where he could really like show off everything he could do at Texas.
Hmm.
And I thought he was gonna be like super good sophomore at Texas. Obviously that didn't happen because he didn't play his sophomore year yet, but like because in my article where I ranked the way too early top
Right.
25. And by the way, I think I might come up with a new top
I'm gonna say
25.
new and revised. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that will possibly be coming out in the next few days. But yeah, one of the reasons I like Texas is because I liked his potential to potentially shape up into an all Big 12 player. And he's still in the Big 12. So the all Big 12 chance is still there. And yet, Timberlake, he can score the ball, he can shoot the ball. I think yeah, he really provides some offense for a team that's not great shooting wise. Like he can really shoot, which is a huge strength because yeah, they don't have that as much shooting. Yeah, Kansas definitely one of the portal winners. And moving on to my next team, I have Gonzaga. They got Graham Ike, Ryan Nemhart, and Steel Venters are also in the running for Zion Pullen, who released his top five, and we will talk about later. But yeah, like this is a like about as good as you can hope for. Ike is a guy who's like proven to be one of the best players in a similar conference.
Hmm.
I mean, Nemhard has been proven to be a solid starting point guard on a team who can really contend in March. And I think Gonzaga will give Nemhard the best opportunity to really show off what he can do offensively. And Steel Venters is a just really solid role player, like the ultimate role player for this team.
Yeah, Gonzaga, great choice. Gonzaga was one of my trio. So but I see you know all about it. You know all about how the Zags built this portal season. So looking at my board here, I'm really am viewing this as a draft here. So I'm looking at my draft board of winners because I had a number of options behind my top ones. I would consider Cal, right? Cal was far
That would
from
have been my next one on the list.
Cal was far from stellar last season, but
Yeah.
Hoop Scoop interview alumnus Fardaws Amac is on the way. Mike
You
Meadows
interviewed
comes from
Jalen Tyson too.
yeah. It's not it's a huge crop for the Golden Bears. I think an underrated one is probably like just to bring a mid major into the conversation in terms of mid major getting players in the portal would be UC Santa Barbara. There has been
I considered putting him down, but I did not.
yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
with
I
UC Santa
agree.
Barbara, you're looking at players who you talked about it or alluded to it a bit ago. You
Mhm.
know, players who were at Power Sixes and maybe didn't have it work out, didn't have the pathway to showcasing all that they can do. You know, really tapping all that potential. But Zach Clements comes from Kansas to UC Santa Barbara. They also get players from Auburn and Creighton, so that's one that I would consider. But I'll ultimately give the nod to Cal because Cal was in such need of a overhaul, and they're getting it. I mean, Tyson was double-digit points a game at Texas Tech, uh, so to pull from two players from Texas Tech, that makes it as which is one of the certainly a good program in the Big 12. I think Cal the Pac-12 always have a hard time making heads or tails out of sometimes in the regular season. So at least Cal made itself much more interesting to watch now as we head into the fall.
Yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 is, in my opinion, going to be a lot more fun to watch. I mean, Bronny went to USC. I don't think we've
Right.
even podcasted since it happened, but like, I mean, I don't know how big of a deal that's going to be, like, actually basketball wise. Like, I think he's really good, but like, I think he'll be
Well,
like maybe like 10 points a game, but like, this will be like a huge deal. Like, everyone will be tuned in to see what
yeah,
he's doing. I saw they just announced today, I think, that they're playing Kansas State the first game of the
right.
season. So, at least that'll be like a first game of the season that people want to watch instead of playing like some random mid-major they beat by 50. So
Mm.
yeah. On the Bronny note, how good do you think he'll be? Like because
Well,
he's like good, but
let's give Brownie some credit here. Like I'm not saying he's gonna be a lottery pick just because of his pops, but like he probably like he's changed the whole the narrative around him is now like independently of whatever his dad's plans are. Like he can be a lottery pick on his own merit. Like but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be a winning college player because now I'm not saying Bronny's going to be Ben Simmons because Bronny definitely has way more just drive and like than Ben Simmons probably did. But like Ben Simmons was we knew Ben Simmons was going to go be no later than a number two pick, and he didn't exactly make LSU they didn't even get in the tournament. So I think Bronny is going to be way more of a winning player, and but I just say that because I'm confident in his individual career projections doesn't necessarily mean USC is going to like necessarily transform. But the Pac-12 is gettable, right? Like they're not in the Big Ten yet. Like it's gonna be gettable.
yeah, I mean, I think USC could be like really good. I mean, they have Isaiah Collier, who is the number one
Yeah,
guy in the country. I mean, I think Brownie's like a perfect role player. Like he would be if he was allowed to stay in college for multiple years, which I don't think is going to end up being the case. Like I think he'd be like a great multi-year, maybe like 2 year player. I obviously think he's gonna leave after 1 year because he's probably gonna play with LeBron in the NBA, but like I think he can like really impact winning. Like I think he does a lot of little things good, which like kind of like obviously LeBron just like an athletic freak. Bronny's not really there, but still a very good basketball player. And maybe overrated by some. Like I saw some mock drafts at him going like top 10. Like he's not
well,
that good in my
yeah,
opinion, but I think he's like I don't have a problem with some of their recruiting rankings. Like he's good.
and you gotta trust that basketball IQ that's passed down. Like he's going to be way more mature than like your typical your
Mhm.
typical first year college basketball player. Like, we got to be honest with ourselves about that.
Yeah, I mean the spotlight isn't going to be any new thing that he has to adjust to. That's for sure. I mean his high school games have been on ESPN, so
Oh yeah, he used to talk. He's been the talk of the town for much longer than just his college
Mhm.
recruiting process.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we got a little off topic there, but good portal class by Cal. And the next school I went to, I guess if we're doing this as a draft, I am drafting the Florida Gators. They got Walter Clayton Jr., Tyree Samuel, Micah Hanglockton, and EJ Jarvis. I think Todd Golden just really got what his team needs and kind of realized what he maybe didn't do as good last year. I really like Clayton. Clayton is like he can be really good, along with Riley Kugel, who's obviously not a transfer, but he's going to be one of the best players in the SEC. And the other three are just like pretty solid fours and fives. Hanglockton, freshman from Marshall, really rebounded the ball, really blocked some shots. Will be interesting to see if his offensive game develops. Samuel was a pretty solid high major caliber player, and Jarvis comes from Yale, had a pretty decent career there, should be a very solid role player. A lot of times Ivy League guys are good at like accepting roles, I feel like moving up a level. Yeah. But yeah, do you have any comments on the Gators?
Yeah, nice choice. Nice choice taking us to the SEC because that's where I thought I might be going next. I didn't necessarily think I might go with Florida, but I have another SEC team in mind. But I know I think Florida's a great choice. You didn't mention that what they lose. They lose Niles Lane. I'm
Yeah,
just pulling your
it's
leg.
a catastrophic loss for the Gators.
And I'm not making light of Niles Lane. Of course I have to work in the fact that he's on his way to Delaware. So, but no, yeah, that's a good choice. I got no bone to pick with that. I was just gonna pick Arkansas next. So Woo Pig Suey, like Arkansas, shout out Musselman, Khalif Battle coming over from Temple, L. Ellis from Louisville. Really like both of those additions, especially when you look at adding from a Pac-12 school, Keon Minifield from Washington. So, yeah, I mean, Arkansas is gonna keep adding these proven veterans. Like it's gonna be, I think, a good combination. So, I'm gonna stick with Arkansas as my pick here, following Florida.
Yeah, I'm personally not as high on the Hogs recruiting class as some are because I feel like they didn't really address the need of shooting. I mean, Battle is a shooter, but he's not like the most efficient. Like I mean, you think he shot like 8 threes a game on 35%, which like you can like that's decent, but I think they should have had more shooting, especially from the guard position. A lot of these guards are not great shooters, but like all in all, like Musk can really recruit from the portal. Like there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna trust the staff at Arkansas
Yeah,
to unlock that a little bit. For the guys they did land, I'm gonna trust that efficiency improves a little bit. So you're making a with this quote draft pick, you're making a bet on this with projections too. But I guess that's the case for all these. So
yeah. I do think Musk is like arguably the best coach in the country and like shaping guys up and getting them to do what he wants on the court. So yeah. So for my next selection here, I'm gonna go to the mid-major world and select the Lobos of New Mexico. I really like what they've assembled, and I think it has them in potential to get to that tournament, which they should have last year before they absolutely collapsed down the stretch. That was pretty bad, but they were clearly a tournament level team for most of the year. And yeah, they got Nelly Jr. Joseph, Mustafa Amzil, Jamarl Baker, and Isaac Mushila. Yeah, Nelly Jr. Joseph is a very good big man from Iona. Should fit in really well in the Mountain West level for sure. Um, Amzil can like is like a stretch for not even like a four. He's more like a wing. Like he's more of a wing. Can like score the ball. Can yeah. I think he's could gun at a high major if he wanted to. I forgot who else was after him, but yeah, Jamarl Baker can also score the ball. Has lots of high major experience with playing at Kentucky and Arizona before Fresno State, and yeah, brings lots of experience. He's pretty old, and then Isaac Mushila, kind of an undersized big, but can really rebound the ball. Um, yeah, this is a great portal class, and like this would be a good portal class at a high major school. And the fact that New Mexico is doing this, like they already have pieces back. They have House and Mashburn back, so like this could be really good. Like the House Mashburn, I really like Donovan Dent, the sophomore. He's going to be a sophomore that they had. Like he has tons of potential. Not sure for how much we're going to see because of how loaded this team is, but they also got like two 4 stars. One that might be like a fringe 3 4 star, but like they have some solid recruits coming in. Like this Lobos team better be good because they have everything on paper they need to go dancing.
Yes, yes, gonna be an absolute factor in the Mountain West. There's zero question in my mind. I with my choice though, next I take it back to the P6. I take it to which team in orange, Texas or Tennessee? Because I do like that Texas got Max Abmas, Oral Roberts, but Tennessee like assembled a really good mid-major all-star roster that I'd be drawn to. Like if you listen to the podcast, Chris Ledlum was in high demand coming out of Harvard. Tennessee picks him up. Dalton Knecht from Northern Colorado was just over 20 a game. Jordan Gainey also scored well at South Carolina Upstate. All of them are going to be Vols. So the fact that Tennessee won this number of high-profile recruits from the mid-major level, especially over, I know 24/7 had been writing this in one of its summaries about it, Tennessee, especially was getting Indiana, like beating out Indiana for a couple of these guys I mentioned. So that's a good deal. And yeah, I'm gonna take Tennessee, give Tennessee some recognition based on that.
Yeah, I like their portal class as well, especially as you mentioned, Ledlam and Necht. Those guys can both really score the ball. Very, very different players, but they can both really score the ball. They both have size, and yeah, Tennessee's getting a lot back to. Like they will be good, and yeah, they're gonna be a contender probably nationally. Probably as of right now, I'd have them first in the SEC. I mean, I haven't done really like all those like conference standings, but I really like this Vols team is what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, they're gonna be good. Their portal class definitely helped them out. They got some, yeah, Connect really provides them with some offense, which will be interesting to see how they play him because he doesn't play defense, and Tennessee is a team that's kind of built on defense. So that'll be interesting to see how
Yeah,
those
yeah,
worlds meet there. Like, is he gonna
right.
be good on defense, or are just gonna try to hide him? But
Yeah, because you can only hide for so long until it gets exposed, right? Like,
yeah.
and will the identity of Tennessee shift that much? Like, I do think with the
Mm.
returnees, they'll probably stick with kind of what we chronicled throughout the throughout the season. Same old thing about Tennessee with the defense, and then really making the offense look far short at times.
Yeah. Um, Moving on, this is the last team on my list. I have Villanova, and their portal class was got a lot better yesterday because they got Tyler Burton, who has been one of the best players in A10. I honestly think he's like an NBA caliber player. And then like you got Hakeem Hart, TJ Bamba, also got Lance Ware. Like Hart and Bamba are really proven high major players, and Ware could. I don't love Ware, but I think he can bring some solid interior defense, rim protection off the bench, which Villanova is lacking some rim protection. Dixon's not like really like a strong defender, so I think Ware can definitely help out there a little. But yeah, about Burton, I was watching the G League Elite Camp scrimmages like 2 weeks ago, and like he wasn't really making his shots. Like statistically, he wasn't having the best game, but like I was just kind of like watching, and I saw like he can like I think he's like an NBA player. Like he's just like he can really play. Like he has good size, good athleticism. Like he will be good. Like Villanova will be good this year.
Wow, Neptune, don't count him, don't count him, don't leave him for dead, don't count him out. No, that's definitely a very timely choice of Villanova, right? Like Burton is big. Burton, especially just being like East Coast, I was kind of hearing so much about that. Where was Burton? That made a lot of waves. And then I'm not just saying on this coast, but yeah, that was big, 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 big time for the momentum of Villanova. So that was a great choice. You got me because that was one I was going to. No, I wasn't zeroed in on, and I don't know if I was necessarily hard set on that, but now I need to take my time here because this is gonna be my last chance to make a good pick.
Okay, yeah, well,
And
I'm all out of teams, so
yeah,
this will be
this is my this is
you'll
my
have the
this is
last pick of the draft.
this is my remaining selection. And I mean, while I'm thinking about it, I'm not going to select TCU, but once again, shout out to TCU for Junior Nelson Jr. I mean, TCU had some losses too, so I was interested to see what TCU is going to do. Gonzaga's been off the board for a good while, had to move on from them, even though I really liked that as well. Keep going down. I'm going to have to deep dig. I have to dig deeper into my bag of tricks. Like even like I want to look at this is, and again, this is like taking a flyer on a school, but like St. John's has a new coach and they got Jordan Dingle, and I shout out Jordan Dingle in our podcast episode during the season for a mid-major All-American spot. Dingle leaves Penn now for St. John's, so I'm it's kind of like I wanted to. I'm not gonna go ahead and put my full faith in St. John's like making that pick, but I'm gonna go ahead and go back to Pac-12. I'm gonna take Arizona because Arizona did figure out getting Caleb Love, not solely because of Caleb Love. I know overall it's not like Arizona wasn't like it's not gonna be everybody's choice, but um I know he's been inefficient, like all the above, but I just think I'm curious to see. I want Arizona to be attached to my name. I'm gonna take a gamble with my last pick. You took Villanova, which I wanted. So there are others I could have gone. Xavier would have been a safer pick. Xavier also had a class that I'm sure you'll want to get into as well. But yeah, I think I'm gonna give a pick to in the draft a school that made a lot of headlines, which is Zona. So bear down. And yeah, it's going to be a mixed bag with Arizona, but I'm curious. So I'm going to let my curiosity kill the Wildcat here.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Love is an interesting player, and we'll talk about him a little later in this episode. So more to focus on their class, but he's really skilled. Like, so if Tommy Lloyd can get him to like, I just don't know that he's gonna want to have that leash on him, like that he needs. So, but yeah, talk about their other guys, Jaden Bradley and Shad Johnson. Um, Johnson's just like a really solid, like 4-man. Like you kind of know what you're gonna get out of him. Like he can really run the floor and is athletic for his position. And Jaden Bradley is also an athletic guard. Played at Alabama. They really had a good season. He was a solid player. Should see his role increase in Tucson. But yeah, another thing about Caleb Love is he adds a lot of shooting to this Arizona team. Like who knows if he'll be efficient, but like they really had nobody who like really shot the ball. Like Jaden Bradley's like a 2 guard. Like he made 7 threes last season. Like Caleb Love can maybe like I don't know. He shoots a lot. We'll see if he makes a lot of them, but he at least adds a perimeter shooting threat to Arizona, along with Kylan Boswell, who was
Right.
shooting well at the end of last season.
Yeah, and I know it's different positions, but like with Tubelis, I know he declared for the draft. Did he and our
Yeah,
deadline was today, of course.
he's gone.
He's
He's
gone for, yeah,
gone.
that's what I thought. I just want to make sure absolutely 100% certain with that. So that's a lot of like I'm not saying it's a positional gap to fill, but there's production gap to fill there.
Yeah, a
So the
lot of
volume of
scoring
love,
lost.
like it's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Tubelis, what did he score like 20 points a game last season, and they got Shad Johnson to replace him, which because Shad Johnson's like a 7 point per game guy, like so you got to balance it out somehow, and maybe that's how they're gonna do it. But let's move on to the portal losers. So let's see, you got the first pick of the portal winners draft, so I guess I'll take
What
the
what do
first.
you even want the first pick of the losers though? Like, how does this even work? Are we? This is a whole different vibe now.
I don't know. Well, I guess I'll just get right into it, and I am picking Michigan. Um, they got Namari Burnett and Trey Jackson. Yeah, it's not looking good in Ann Arbor next year. Um, I mean, they also had Caleb Love for a brief period of time, who I'm not sure really would have made the team any better, but at least it would have made it like a lot more fun to watch. Like this team was just like I don't know, they're just what they are. Like there's not really anything to be excited about. Like they needed to get, I mean, for one about the portal, like can Michigan even like get guys? Because the last 2 years they've been get really unlucky because they were going to get Terrence Shannon last year, admissions wouldn't let him in. They were going to get Caleb Love this year. Admissions wouldn't let him in. Like, is this a problem? Like,
Yeah, it's a trade-off. Like I didn't in recruiting, being an institution with the stature of Michigan and the well-earned academic cachet, that's important, but you can't just it's not a turnstile in terms of getting people through. And I'm not saying that these would be transfers to Michigan like aren't plenty bright and everything, but it's hard. You and I know how maybe not admissions at like this particular school, but like college admissions, it's a high bar, and yeah, it's complicated process. So Michigan's run into that. I think it's a great choice to select Michigan as a loser of the portal. I think about Michigan, the greater picture, how far behind it's feeling like the Wolverines are behind Michigan State. Like my gosh, like Michigan's roster just is a puzzle that is missing a ton of not just centerpieces, but usually, you've connected plenty of puzzles in your day, right, Austin? Like you build it from the perimeter. Like I don't even think they have the corner puzzle pieces at Michigan necessarily. Like that's what's happening right now. So Michigan State makes that gap go even further. I know we'll get into Michigan State. I believe what's on our agenda, right? Well, we'll get around to it regardless. But
yeah.
yeah, I think about Michigan, and yeah, it's a great choice of a losing team as
Yes.
far as the portal goes.
I mean, just to put this in perspective, like they had Hunter Dickinson last year, who was like a borderline all American player. They also had Jet Howard and Kobe Buffkin, who are like two guys who will likely be selected in the first round of the draft. And they didn't make the tournament with that group. And they added Namari Burnett, who's like a decent role player, like probably been a little disappointing over his career. And Trey Jackson, who's like another like role player ish, like forward. Like there's just, and they only got one freshman, George Washington the third, who's like he's not like a 5-star or anything. Who knows if he's going to be good right away. I do like Doug McDaniel, but I do not like Doug McDaniel when he's your team's best player at a Big Ten school that has the reputation of Michigan. So yeah, Michigan is in for a very rough year. Like besides Minnesota, like who are they even better than the Big Ten? Like maybe no one. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
if Minnesota's the bar, that's
yeah,
that's
they're gonna be
not
better than
inspiring.
Minnesota, but that's not saying anything.
I mean, I'll keep our. We have to have a negative energy about this segment. Just feel like we just have to have some critiques here because I'll move. I mean, another team that took some L's in the portal. You have to go with Florida State. Like it's not just losses on the floor this past season, but now the fact that you had Matt Cleveland go to Miami within the conference like that, that's difficult. That's difficult. Kayla Mills goes to Memphis, and we talked about how FSU did pull in Josh Nickelberry from LaSalle, another A10 guy that's heading to FSU, Jameer Watkins from VCU. But on balance, doing the pros and cons analysis, doing the trade off of what was gained, what was lost, at least at this moment. Now, it'd be interesting to update this and see how these transfers all perform rather than to start prognostications in the preseason. But it could change. But for right now, it's hard to say. Florida State isn't closer to the losing side of just this particular portal cycle. Just I think especially it's definitely a tough gut punch to lose one of your names to a conference rival in state as well. So yeah, I lean that direction for my pick here.
Yeah, they also got Primo Spears. I don't know if he's gonna be eligible, but just trivia here. Do you know what Primo Spears' conference record is in his 2 years in college?
Oh gosh, because Georgetown was, I mean, it has to be single digit what conference wins, right?
Yeah.
It has to be. There's no way they're sniffing. I mean, more like we're talking about like on one hand, right? You see me, our
Mhm.
viewers online on YouTube will see me put up one hand. It's under 5, right?
Yeah.
What is it like 3, 4?
Yeah. Well, he didn't even play at Georgetown last year,
So
and
you can't
it's
even count that. So
no,
I'm trying to think
he
back. Was there 2? Right? Did they pick up a couple wins? I thought they had a
no,
couple.
they won two this year, and then he was at Duquesne last year, and they won one.
Oh, see, I totally misremember that. You're refreshing my memory of that. Okay, wow. So it is 3
So
combined.
he is 3-34 in conference play.
Holy smokes.
So I mean, he's kind of talented, and even if he's eligible, which I don't see why he would be eligible, but like,
That's why I didn't initially, have him come to
but like,
mind. Yeah.
is he a winning player? I mean, the sources have shown that he might not be. Not that all that is his fault, but
Yeah, I mean, look, his timing
probably
is not
something to
great. Like
take
just
into
where now
consideration.
it's a balancing act of how to distribute that blame. Let's in all fairness, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's been part of it. But yeah, like even if he's not the issue, like he's probably not really a good player, like a impactful player on a really good team. And yeah, Florida
And it's, at
State,
Florida State needs such a turnaround too. Like, is he gonna be able to shoulder all that?
no. But yeah, I'm not sure what Florida State. I don't know what's going on. I thought Leonard Hamilton was a good coach, and he's just like completely proving that wrong the past few years. He had a lot of really good years, but he might be about ready to hang it up. It's getting bad down there, but I guess I will go with my next pick. And is this if his school got no one from the portal, does it count?
Yeah, because I'd say sure, because heck, if you have portal inactivity, then that's just as much something to talk about as portal activity. Like I think that
Well,
stands out. If you have absolutely no new bodies by transfer, now that does say something.
well, in that case, I will take Kentucky. They have like 6 open scholarships. I think they're going to get some guys from the portal, but like, what are you waiting on? Like, it's June 1st, and they have 7 scholarship players. 5 of them are freshmen. 2 of them are unproven sophomores. Like, what are we doing here? Let's get some guys from the portal. And I know they've been in talks with like Arthur Kluma and David Jones, who are some of the better transfers left. But like, are either of those guys going to save their roster? Like, I don't know. Like, Kentucky is. I don't know what Calipari is doing because you cannot win with freshmen. Like that doesn't happen anymore. And especially you can't win with a freshman of the 2023 class who has been the worst incoming class in like 20 years. Like what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
Big
that's
Blue?
I it caught me by surprise he brought up Kentucky like that, but it's worth at this moment now, and in the days after this, maybe it'll be just our luck speaking into existence. There could be movement, but yeah, I think all the discussion's been away from this very subject where Kentucky just hasn't been an active participant or hasn't just gotten it done. Maybe they've been active. I'm sure they've made some.
Well,
You have to think Kentucky's missed on a
but it's
couple things.
Kentucky. Like if you really want to get guys, you're gonna get guys. Like
Yeah, at
what
least
are
you
they
think so.
doing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I hear you wholeheartedly. I'm honestly while I'm saying as I'm thinking this, I'm I'm reconfiguring my board a little bit because I wasn't thinking of a team that didn't have an addition. So now I have more options available to me for possible loser here.
Yeah. Kentucky was my only team with 0 additions.
Yeah, I just have one more loser on mine. I didn't I this negative energy around the losers was really getting to me. I couldn't even bear to I couldn't even bear to pick more beyond. It was close for this last one. I mean, it's tight. I kind of want to stay away from schools that just had bad seasons to begin with, and then there are departures, like guys just kind of choosing to go a different route. Like, so I kind of want to look at Baylor, right? Like
They got
Baylor
Ray J
lost
Dennis
LJ
today
Crowder.
though.
What's that?
They got Ray J Dennis today.
I know. They got, but I'm saying as of like, I know that changed their fortunes a lot. So they weren't my first loser pick. Ray J Dennis makes a big deal, but I'm just saying they lost LJ Cryer, so they're fortunate that they got Ray
But
J Dennis.
Ray
Like,
J is probably just as good.
so you think that's one for one?
I mean, he was a MAC player of the year. Like he can really like score the ball. He can pass the ball solid. Like I mean, I
Yeah,
would have considered Baylor maybe a loser before today, but
I guess. Okay, I'll listen to your argument that they've nullified it by virtue of. I'm not trying to sleep on Ray J either. Like, definitely was one of when he was made his announcement earlier today. I was interested
yeah.
in that because that Final Four teams was interesting combination. But I they lost more than just Cryer, although they lost other than that they just lost really role players by and large. Um, so I'm sticking with Baylor. They weren't a winner though. No, I noticed he didn't choose them as a winner either.
No.
I guess I'll catch flack for this. Baylor at best they're like neutral just because they they at least they kind of like minimize their damages by getting Dennis. And that's not me like trying to, I'm not taking takes on I'm not trying to have Dennis catch strays or anything, but I I want to look at Baylor because my options I was kind of limiting them for myself because I didn't want to pick somebody like Vanderbilt, like just another team that was kind of like not didn't have the best year on the court to begin with.
Yeah.
So I wanted to scrutinize Baylor, but they did. You're right. They did turn it around today in a big way.
Yeah, Vanderbilt almost would have been one of my losers, but did you see that they got Tyron Lawrence back today,
Oh no, I
from
did
the
not
portal?
actually.
He
No.
did. That
Okay.
was fairly recent, but yeah, they got him back, and like Vanderbilt was the biggest loser for a while, but then they kind of got some guys at the end. They got Van Allen Lubin. They ended up getting Tazos Kamateros, which all in all, they didn't necessarily win the portal at all. Like they were probably more on the losing side, but I don't think they would be one of the biggest losers after what they
Yeah.
did in the recent weeks. But
Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, so I guess I'll just go to one of my other ones. I have Oklahoma State, and they lost a ton of the portal, and I don't think they picked up a proportional amount considering how they lost. Javon Small is a guy I actually like sort of like a little bit. He's a solid point guard, good passer. I don't think he's the most efficient scorer, but he can score the ball solid. And then they got Jarius Hinklin from North Florida and Mike Marsh from Jacksonville, who like probably are not even really Big 12 caliber players necessarily. Like, yeah, they just need a little bit more, and I don't think they had it.
Yeah, yeah. No, staying right with the Big 12. I think when you look at Oklahoma State's plus and minuses in the portal, and then like I talk about Baylor, especially in light of Baylor's big pickup earlier today. I definitely reached on Baylor as far as like a loser goes because Oklahoma State's in rougher shape. Like just having the departures, like the departing players had roles available to them at OSU too. Like I mean, you don't ever know exactly what the discussions are, but you would think that it's just a bit puzzling. So Oklahoma State, it seems like it's going to be like there will be reliance on some youth, right? Like for the Big 12 standings positioning that they're looking for. Like I don't know exactly how that's going to shake out. So I think that's a
Yeah.
good choice. I think that's a good choice. I think the combination of Oklahoma State and Baylor, I tip my cap to you probably because I was antsy to look at Baylor. I was like, well, wait a second. Ray J's Ray J's not walking through the door in Stillwater. We know that. So yeah,
No,
yeah. With these
no.
two, yeah, it's interesting.
Instead, they're getting Javon Small, who's just worse. He's solid though, but not as good. But another loser that I have. Do you have any more, or should I just keep
Oh
going
no,
through
you can
mine?
round out. I that's as far as I went with the yeah.
Yeah, I do have two more losers. So if you're fans of these teams, you probably won't like what I have to say, but hopefully you can just agree that you coaches did not do a good job of working a portal. And I have Seton Hall. Um, the transfers that they brought in are Jaden Bediako, Dylan Adewusu, and Elijah Hutchins Everett. Um, yeah, I'm just like these guys are all just like role players ish. Like Bediako, like averaged like 6 points a game at Santa Clara, and he's probably going to be their starting center. If it's not him that's your starting center, it'll be Hutchins Everett, who averaged like 11 points a game at Austin P. Like these two are like fine role players, but when they're like battling for your starting job, probably not what you'd like. Adewuso is fine, but like he's kind of fine. That's all he is, and like there's just no like firepower on this team. Like it's just they're just gonna be kind of boring, honestly. And I know NIL is not the best there, if I recall, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a matter of resources, like a lot. That's something we're kind of overlooking at times. But yeah, with the team that's in a loser, even in the P6 that you're talking about, like it's has and have nots of the tired college sports cliche, but like it gets a little more glaring, right? Like I feel bad for Shaheen, right? Like he should have a lot of pull. He does. I know he does have pull in New Jersey. There's no question. But yeah, this particular offseason, I think your choice is right.
Yeah, and I also have one more loser, and this loser is a team that actually picked up a lot of guys from the portal, but it is Arizona State. And the guys that they got were Bryant Silabonge, Zane Meeks, Adam Miller, Sean Phillips, Kamari Lands, and Bryson Long, which is a pretty big portal class. But like when you look at what they lose in comparison to what they gain, like what did they really gain from this class? Like I like Sobangi might be my like favorite player out of his class. He comes from a 5-win team. So like I think he's actually good, but like
Well, so I'm confused. You keep judging certain players by their previous team's win
no,
totals.
I'm
Like,
saying like he's their best player they got from this class, and because like um Tulsa won 5 games and I think his win shares was like 2.9. So
yeah,
he's actually good, but like for him to be their best player, like Meeks is like solid, but he was like a role-ish player on like a WCC team. Like he's actually a guy that I think could fit in well. Adam Miller might be just like terrible. Like he was horrible efficiency wise at LSU. Like I did like him his freshman season at Illinois, but like this last season was atrocious. Like LSU might have been the portal winner because they got rid of him. Like,
that
if
that
he,
that's a zinger. That's a zinger. Right? That's immortalized in the audio. Good grief.
but no, he could be good. I just there's when the most recent stuff is him being pretty bad. Sean Phillips was like maybe he has potential, but like he didn't do anything as a freshman on a bad team. Like Kamari Lands, kind of the same way, played in a bad team. Bryson Long also is probably just not a high major player, although he can shoot it. Like I'm just not super sold in any of these guys. I maybe still Bongage because he has size and can rebound, but I can't be sold. But like when you look at the guys they lose, let me pull up. Okay, they lost both of the Cambridges. Um, they lost DJ Horn. They lost Warren Washington. They lost Luther Muhammad, Austin Nunez. Some of those guys to graduation, not to portal, but like you just didn't get as much as you lost, and I think it was a pretty big difference considering how much they lost to how much they got. Like, and another thing about Adam Miller, I saw he tweeted like after he committed, like this will be the last time you see me in the portal. Like, buddy, you this is your third off season in college basketball, and it's the third time you're in the portal. Like okay, like
I mean, I do hope so. I hope
yeah,
that's true. Like,
I
I hope.
hope he's not in the portal again. But to be fair, he did take his name out of the portal last year, but he this still his third time in the portal in 3 off seasons, so not necessarily something to like brag about that you're not going to do it next year when
Well, I mean, on the other side though, maybe it's just like, hey, that's very upfront. Like that's very much like kind of commit. You just want to talk about quote committing. Like that's committing. Like this is it. That's a statement. We'll
uh,
see. We'll see how it ages.
hopefully the third time is a charm. Um, but yeah, so I think that wraps up our portal winners and losers segment. So now we move to the draft deadline, which was yesterday, May 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, which was when these guys had to make it clear um, whether they were taking their name out of the NBA draft or returning to school for another year. And the one we have to start with is Zach Edey. For the second straight season, the National Player of the Year is returning back to college. The last one was before him and Oscar. I believe it was Hansbrough. Um, but yes, Zach Edey is returning to West Lafayette, and yeah, this is big. Like, this is like he's going to be the face of college basketball. I think it's great for the sport that he's returning. So what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
I'm glad you alluded to that. I do think it's a plus that for the sport. Like we don't talk about the sport like as a healthy living organism, but like returning Edie not just to Purdue but to the Big Ten, to presumably March Madness. Like that's all. That's all. Those are all pluses. Those are all pluses for for our sake at least. It's great to see him back, and we can talk about him more. And I don't view this as a I don't view this as a surprise necessarily. Like it it just would have been so hard to have your final collegiate game be the infamous FDU Purdue. Not infamous. It's
Yeah.
not hardly infamous. I'd say it is famous in a good way. But it's hard. I hardly think that would be an easy final collegiate game to leave on your ledger. So I mean, there's more to it than that. I'm sure. I'm sure Edie has his own like the reasons involving his game, and like we don't necessarily think he's done. Like he can have. He was great in throughout the regular season, but he can have even more resounding March too, and that could really help. So I think yeah, I don't know this necessarily like blows me over backwards that he's coming back, but at the same time, you don't take it for granted, right? Like it's just with all the different forces at play, like in the basketball market, going from college to the pros and different ways, different routes you can get there. Like I certainly don't take it for granted that Edey's coming back, but there are some factors here that I think made it a little bit more likely, not namely the loss to FDU.
Yeah, and he's not like an NBA type player. Like I think he would probably maybe get drafted,
I
but
mean,
like
he'd get looks. I think he's
yeah,
got such a big name
he
too.
would he
Like,
would get picked up at the very least, but
yeah,
like he's just not a guy that'll thrive in the NBA. And I
at
mean,
least in today's NBA. Like there
yeah.
was a time. There was a time. Like let's
Well,
be
that
real.
time is not now, so it's not really relevant.
Regrettably, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, and I don't think his stock changes like before next year. Like it's not like teams are gonna have any different opinions on him, and if he can actually, I'm sure he's getting some nice NIL money, which had to be a
This,
factor.
yeah.
Like that's one of the main reasons that a lot of these guys are staying in college. But yeah, so Creighton, they had a big draft deadline. They got Ryan Kalkbrenner and Trey Alexander back. Both guys were not like for sure to come back, so this was huge that they got both them, especially yeah. Alexander took it down to the final day, and Kalkbrenner decided a few days ago, but this is still huge. Like without either of these guys, Creighton would have been in a little bit of a tricky position because they were like so good when Kalkbrenner was on the court last year, and they were pretty bad without him on the court. Like you look at the on-off splits; those will tell you everything. And then Alexander really like they don't really have any like they don't really have a great bench. Again, maybe a little bit better, but there's probably not another like starting caliber guy. So like, and him being like an all Big East level player like this really just adds a lot more to their team and like really cements them as a contender. And if they all stay healthy, like this could be a really good year. Like,
Yeah. I echo you. The Blue Jays would have been in a bit of a bind if it weren't for the way this deadline shook out, but run it back. I'm so tempted. The whole theme of this episode could be run it back. Who's able to run it back? Creighton is one of those teams. So yeah, I mean, I would expect as given your background, I'd expect you to be able to summarize it better than anybody. And yeah, that's all bar for bar. I think very fair. I think that puts the Big East on I mean, it's not like these aren't new names, obviously, by definition, but so I guess it's strange to say it would put the Big East on notice, but it's like Creighton's not going anywhere at the same time.
yeah, I mean, it'll keep the notice on them. Even with losing a few stars to the portal, I think they're still in great position to do some real damage, not just in the Big East, but nationally. Um, and then we moved to Kentucky, who had a pretty bad draft deadline. Oscar stayed in the draft, and so did Chris Livingston. And Antonio Reeves withdrew from the draft, but it's still kind of unsure if he's actually coming back to Kentucky, which is not great. Especially we talked about the current state of the roster. We don't really have to bring that up again necessarily and go through that all again, but like this is it's things are getting bad in Lexington. Like the panic button needs to be smashed immediately because
Oh, what? Hold
like
on. Really? Really? Panicking?
I mean like they have 7 players on their roster and 5 of them are
Yeah.
freshmen. Like
Okay.
this is not like a
Yes.
top 25 team.
Yes. Okay. It's not a top 25 team on June 1st, but I remember having we talked about Kentucky on the court, like in a panic. And then I felt a little silly later. Like, yeah, I'm hesitant to shovel that kind of dirt on them, but
Why
there's
would you not be
alarm. I think there's
panicked
a lot.
though?
My word, if I'm splitting hairs in semantics, that's what I do. But it's definitely alarm. Like you're having seven players is not that's not SEC ready or D1 ready.
No, they're yeah, it'll be interesting. I wonder like what their roster will look like once it's set. Like how many guys they get from the portal and like do they actually get anyone good? I saw they reached out to Joey Hart, who's a UCF commit, and let me bring up his final four before he committed to UCF. Um, yeah, so he's like ranked in the 200 somewhere. Like, I mean, I'm sure he's a fine player, but like when Kentucky starts recruiting you, that probably says more that Kentucky's really, yeah. His top four was Toledo, Ball State, UCF, and Evansville. Like, I mean, like he's still like high major teams were gonna kind of be on him because he's a decent prospect opening, but like Kentucky, like they're it's not great. But yeah, what else happened? Yeah, FAU, they got their guys back, which was kind of everyone knew they were probably coming back, but like just to have it confirmed means the Owls are back, hopefully for another Final Four run because that was fun. But even if they're not, like they're still really good. Like this was not a fluke. Like we've said multiple times, like they did most wins in college basketball. They just didn't what get lucky into the tournament and go on a crazy run. Like they were actually that good.
Oh yeah, they were those guys, and this is another example. Just I'll say quickly, not to just like this is another example of a good. This has been a good portal deadline draft deadline for college hoops generally, like men's college hoops. We talk about Zach Edey, kind of the face at the very top, the figurehead of the P6, right? But then Florida Atlantic, it gets to put it back together. Like that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's amazing. And yeah, like you could almost consider them a portal winner. They didn't lose anyone.
Yeah, well,
Like
so it's funny you talk about Kentucky's inactivity, and then like there was inactivity in as far as what affected
Mhm.
FAU, right? Like,
I mean, you heard the stories. Like everyone was trying to get in contact with these players and try to poach them, and they did not let that happen. They're back in Boca Raton, and this FAU team is still going to be very good. Like, yeah, like they were legit like top 20 team last year. Like, maybe not like a top four team, but like this wasn't a fluke, and they are like almost completely running it back. So I will be really excited to watch more of this team and. Because I know they have like a few good non-conference games now on the schedule, obviously in a little bit of a weaker American. So yes, interested to see how the Owls, and they also have to another aspect. They also have to like kind of handle the pressure. Like no one really cared about them in the early season, but like all the eyes are going to be on them. So
all the
really,
owl eyes. Sorry, I had to
yeah.
say all the beady owl. I had to say. I'm sorry. Anyway, well, I'll let you take us on to the next topic.
But yeah, Michigan State got AJ Hogart and Jaden Akins back, which is huge. Like Michigan State is another team that is really contending uh nationally, you could say. Like they're really deep. They got a good freshman class coming in. They return almost everyone of note except for Joey Hauser, who was out of eligibility. But yeah, like this team is very good. Like Tom Izzo, he probably doesn't have many more years left. Let's see if he can get something done this year.
Oh yeah, I've alluded to it earlier, and we didn't mention the 5 stars. Xavier Booker is going to come in seventh in ESPN 100. Like it's a deadline draft deadline just adds to what projects to be. Yeah, not I mean not, I don't want to say like smooth sailing, but like in comparison to Big Blue, in comparison to the in-state rival, yes, it is. It does look much smoother. So yeah, all the above.
Yeah, and I'm also intrigued about their freshman Cohen Gar, who's like he's an athletic freak. Like you probably saw. I think there was a video of him dunking somewhere. Like he can jump. Like I don't know how good he actually is going to be skill wise, but like he's going to find mins because of his athleticism. It's crazy. But yeah, Villanova. When we talked about him earlier, but all three of their transfers, they're good. They're better transfers. I mean, obviously Lance Ware did not enter the draft, but their other guys entered the draft and they all came back, which the heart and Bamba like that was expected, but Tyler Burton, like I saw a few days ago, he was like leaning towards the pro route, and to get him like not to go that way and go to Villanova instead, like that's got to be a winner. I mean, can't do much better than that at the last minute. Um,
At the buzzer, got it done.
yes. Um, a few guys that were in the portal. I guess one of them still is in the portal. Julian Phillips is not going to be staying in the portal as he will be entering the NBA draft, whereas Arthur Kaluma will be still in the portal and he withdrew from the NBA draft. His destination is unknown. We will touch on Kaluma a little bit later, so don't need to say anything more on him right now. But Illinois got a big boost. They did not get Ray J, they were strongly in the running for, and they were the presumed favorite from day one. But they got Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins back, so that's still got to be a win. Um, Hawkins is like big. Like I thought Shannon was going to come back and Hawkins was going to be gone. But the fact that they got both of them back, like, I mean, on paper they could be pretty good, and on paper they were good last year too. And that was Illinois last year was it was something. Like I don't know what it was, but it was something. But yeah, I think they could like have a chance to be pretty good. And like Shannon's like these guys might have both gotten drafted. And the fact that they're both coming back, like Illinois will be pretty good, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You beat me to saying like I think you would have been pretty happy if you're an Illinois fan to get one or two back. So it's going two for two. I mean, I don't want to like NIL speculate again, but like like another good that's another very productive. Productive is a strange word to call it because all you're retaining. It's just good. It's good to retain that talent, and that continuity. So yeah, I think that you touched on the biggest thing. My observation I had was not just one, but both of them getting the band back together, or that portion of it anyway.
Yes. On the other end of the spectrum, UConn lost to Thomas Snogo and Andre Jackson. Snogo was always kind of presumed gone, but Jackson was kind of on the fence, which definitely hurts UConn. Like UConn still will be decent, but like I'm not sold into being like that great next year. Like I know
Well,
they are in the
yeah,
running for Cam Spencer, who we will discuss, but like we don't have him yet. Like, and they're still in the running with some other pretty good teams. So UConn might have
yeah.
start two freshmen. So
Always be cautious about defending national champions too. So, and but turning up to Sonogo, like what more did he have to accomplish? Like, like I mean, he I I think I think that that's not something that was too out of the expected either. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to start playing like a violin for UConn either, considering they have plenty of program momentum. The Huskies will they'll be just fine in the long run. So they this was a theme of the end of last season. Naturally, they reminded everybody of the blue blood status that we wanted to like forget about, or like I don't know, nobody was like actively trying to ignore that, but it was a big reminder to us all. So even if yeah, I mean this deadline did have the losses that you kind of could see coming for our national champion team, though.
they did get Trish Newton back at the buzzer as well, which is I mean I'm not like I don't love Tristan Newton, but he's like better than who they would have if they didn't come back. And he's a solid all around point guard. Like you definitely are very happy with him back. Um, Kobe Brown is staying in the draft, despite being a lock to both Alabama and Arkansas per their fans. So, but yeah, he will not be returning to college. He will not be transferring. There was a ton of buzz about that. That could be a possibility, but that's all it was. It was just buzz, not actual stuff that happened. So yeah, great career at Mizzou. Was really good this year, and yeah. Another player staying in draft is Chase Adis, and this might mean that Northwestern will not be as good because they did get Boo Booey back a few weeks ago, but Adis was the defensive anchor of the team, and part of the reason, I mean, the reason why Northwestern was so good was their defense and ability to win close games. So yeah, and I just don't think like they brought in enough talent. Like I don't know if they're gonna make a tournament next year. Like I could see this happening in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The range of outcomes is wide. It gets wider when you lose all these. It's a shame in the sense that Northwestern in close games was one of the more like fun stories of this past season now. But yeah, inevitably there's gonna be roster turnover, and it comes in the form of all these the deadline here. But yeah, Bowie back that's a plus. Like
Yeah.
it's not all woe for the Cats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are the names that we're going to touch on for the draft deadline, mostly the ones that happen like at the deadline. Um, but yeah, there have also been some recent like transfers, recruits, that type of news that happened recently. So might as well touch on that. So the most notable one in terms of headlines is Caleb Love committing to Arizona. We obviously touched on this a little bit earlier, but now we can go more in depth on Love. Like I don't know. I just don't know that he's a winning player. Like I don't. He's not a winning player. Like he like when he gets hot, he's really good, but like that's not something that's sustainable. Like I don't know. Did Arizona need to take him? Like I don't know.
Well,
What are your
yeah.
thoughts?
So okay. We kind of talked about this from the Arizona POV before. So I just want to say, like, I actually don't even have that much more to say about Love, other than I'm relieved for him, like the player, the person, because this had to be one of the most stressful times in his career to have the original commitment to Michigan. Like, now he had options, he had choices. Like, I'm not saying he was like completely without, but it had to be really a challenging time frame to. I mean, again, not that he didn't have like plenty of choices, but still, like the first plan A, you'd by what we know was Michigan, and the so like as to come out of all that fallout and still wind up at like a really I know Arizona like wasn't like at the top of the country last season or anything, but
No,
like
they were a 2 seed.
I don't but you think about how they finished. So I'm just saying there, like let's be real about that. Like, but like all the same, what I'm talking about with Love is the Michigan does not work out, and he still winds up at a really esteemed program. So I'm happy for him for that. And he's gonna get plenty of touches, right? Like I just think the fit is there in terms of just he's gonna have ample touches. So
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a great thing for Arizona. He's gonna have a lot of touches, but
it's a good thing for him. I'm completely talking about this young man at this point. Like I'm just being straight up about that. But yeah, it as far as Arizona goes, we'll be holding a microscope to it because it's not foolproof, is what you're getting at, and you're right.
yeah, it'll be something worth watching for sure. I could see it going down a variety of ways, and I guess we'll just see because yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like he's super talented. That just he just hasn't been a winning player, especially this last season. But yeah, we'll just see what happens because yeah, it's gonna be something to watch. Absolutely. Um, Another transfer that we touched on earlier in a little bit is Ray J. Dennis, the MAC Player of the Year, is headed to Baylor. Yeah, this is another great pickup. Somehow still a portal loser, according to Dan, but yeah, I mean, MAC Player of the Year can really score the ball, solid passer, really fits in this Baylor group nice with some younger guys and should be a good leader as well.
Yep, I concur. I do think that now Dennis, like, it does feel like he has the weight of the work, like the weight of the class on, like the weight of the transfer class. Like he saved the class. Like I guess again, I'll amend like again taking a like a more balanced approach at it. Again, this is all very authentic live debate. Like I'll call Baylor like it tied. It's like a transfer portal tie, not a win or a loss. Like it tied, but there's plenty in the future. It like in looking back on it, the way the season goes, Dennis could be first team all Big 12. Would that be a surprise? I don't think it'd be a surprise for a first teamer. Like bring some max into the Big 12. Like I know it's very crowded. They're like every team has at least one. Like you can make at least a stretch of an argument for. But I'm doing that just to give Dennis his fair credit while also saying like, hey, like it is interesting the fact that he is like the guy we're talking about who's going to be the one guy turning around that portal group.
Yeah, the one concern might have with Dennis is that the last Toledo transfer who like won Player of the Year and was the same like position was Marion Jackson, who transferred to Arizona State and was really nothing spectacular. I do trust Scott Drew's ability to like play with like mid-major, low-major transfers, especially at guard positions. But it's kind of something to be concerned about, especially when uh you're coming from a school like Toledo, who is like plays like no defense. So that could be something to watch. See if he's just like really actually that good and can translate. But I think he'll be pretty good. Um, a recruit that we are going to talk about that is not going to play in college basketball next year is Ron Holland, who was thought to be heading to Arkansas. So this is a big blow for Arkansas, almost a bigger blow for Arkansas than it is for Texas, because Texas knew he'd be gone for like a month, but Arkansas thought they'd be getting him for like a month. So G League Ignite, they gave him some money, so he took the money. So
Hey, I'm
yeah,
not gonna criticize. I'm not gonna criticize anybody for that.
no,
It's your health. It's your. I mean, talk about it comes out a lot more in football, but like it's your health. Like you don't. Every time you're on the floor, you're risking a knee injury for a player who's 5 stars with this much quote upside. Like heck, the only tear I shed is that we don't get to see him in the course of our regular season in our podcast discussions. But it was big news. And your point is the distinction between like the fact that he was a Texas signee, but really like who's it sting? Who does it sting for more? Like probably does sting for Muss more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ignite, I also generally have positive thoughts on compared to like overtime elite. Like Ignite will
Yeah, they're not
actually
all the same, are they? Like
no, like
let's also yeah.
Ignite is a pretty solid pathway for uh top recruits like him. Um, Supreme Cook, one of the best names in the country, is headed to Georgetown to play with Ed Cooley. Um, should slot in nice as their starting center. Um, yeah, he's a pretty solid big man, can rebound pretty well. Seton Hall, it seemed like you would maybe be going there, but he is not. He is going to Georgetown. Very solid pickup.
Yeah, like really like it for the Hoyas. Like even okay, so you gave the true X's and O's analysis. Here's my like offbeat thing. Like just to follow up on that, Supreme Cook is gonna bring like I really do think he's gonna bring some kind of swag. Like Ed Cooley, important for Georgetown at the very top. Like the let him cook edits, the highlight edits of him at Georgetown is just gonna bring a whole new like layer of fun to a program that hasn't had a lot of fun. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like let's acknowledge the fact that the let him cook. Like that NIL trademark. I don't even get a trademark on that, or if that applies to some existing pro player or something. But that would be special.
They got to get something going like that. It's too good of an opportunity to pass up. Um, but yeah, Elliot Cadeau is reclassifying to the 2023 class and staying with his commitment to North Carolina, obviously. And this is big for the Tar Heels because like before him, they were going to be playing RJ Davis at point guard, who was like solid, but him off the ball would probably be better in my opinion. And yeah, like one thing is that reclass point guards have been like kind of bad. Like you talk about like Christian Lander and Devin Askew, but Cadeau will be 19 by when the season starts. So like he is basically just reclassifying into what he should be. And like I think he's actually like really good. So I don't really have any issues here. I think he will be a serviceable starting point guard for North Carolina and definitely makes them a little better for next year.
Yeah, it all adds up as far as his own timeline and his age and what year he can get into to fit that sequence. And yeah, I love the way it fits into the existing roster, like kind of maximizing the existing. I mean, you alluded to it, better maximizing the existing guys. So that's like one of the more underrated. Like we didn't bring it up in terms of winners, losers, but like just and again, that was a matter of transfers, but just playing making the right mixes and matches in terms of years and positions. UNC gets it done with Elliott.
Yes. Ernest Uday has committed to TCU. Uh, was once thought to be a Duke lock. He is going to be a Horned Frog next year. And yeah, this is a pretty solid gift for TCU. We didn't see much from him at Kansas, but also Kansas was a 1 seed and he's like a former McDonald's All-American. Yeah, he's big, rim protector, pretty athletic. I think he'll be good at TCU when he can actually like play a little bit more and get to show off what he
Yeah,
can do.
yeah, and I don't like it. It would Duke really have made that much sense for him? Like Filipowski's,
I think so because they don't really have like a five. Like Filipowski will probably end up playing to five, but I think he's more of a four.
yeah. So
And
you think
I
he probably could have Ernest could
yeah,
have probably bumped him still in the
they,
end,
they need someone to replace Lively, who they still don't have. I think they're
right?
probably going to have to roll with Filipowski at the five, but
Hmm.
yeah. So, Damian Collins to LSU. I mean, I guess we kind of touched on this earlier. Just has potential. A great athlete. Didn't really do much at Kentucky. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Ole Miss got some guys in Allen Flanagan and Jalen Murray. Flanagan's a really good pickup. I mean, he's obviously following his dad, so not much of a surprise that he ended up at Ole Miss. But like, yeah, that's a good pickup. Like, he's a plus SEC starter. Murray, Murray can score. I think he's a. I mean, there are worse guys that you could have off the bench for just some quick scoring when you need some. So I like this too late get today assembled.
And
Any
how about Murray going from St. Peter's to Ole Miss that whole that I'm just picturing that like if nobody's been to St. Peter's, I have not been to St. Peter's, but like people became aware like what it looks like the gym and all. Just think about again, this is not on the court observation, but I'm just quickly like just adding some like just thinking about from Jalen Murray's perspective, like he has to be his whole cultural shift is going to be crazy going from Jersey like kind of that North Jersey kind of area and the resources there to the Grove and like Ole Miss and this first fall at Ole Miss, he's probably it's gonna be a lot of fun, I'm sure. So anyhow, no, I mean that seriously, like it'll be fun. The
yeah.
Grove is cool. So but no, yeah, it's kind of cool to see Chris Beard. We talked a lot about Beard and like now he's kind of I'm interested to see how like this is one example of I'll be keeping tabs on like how it goes for him in his next go around it because there's been a lot that's changed since we first discussed his like status with what fell out of Texas.
Yeah, yeah. Ole Miss, I think, will just be kind of good because he's there. Like I like what happened off the court aside. Like he is a really good coach. So Ole Miss will find a way to be at least like decent. Um, Jesse Zarzuela committed to Oregon, and this is just what happens when you're one of the last decent guys in the portal. I don't think he's that great. I mean, I think he's good, but like, do I think he's a Oregon caliber player? Probably not. He can score the ball, not super efficient, but yeah, like another player that could be good for some bench scoring, like can score in bunches.
A good option,
So,
definitely a good
yeah.
option. Like hard to sneeze at that. And if he can get his field goal percentage over 40%, that would probably like it's just kind of he hasn't quite even knocked on the door of that. So like that would probably be like one of those benchmarks you can watch for with Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he'll play a ton, but yeah, he can be a spark off the bench. And considering who was left, like, well, I
Right.
guess you
So
take
in the
him.
minutes he does get, like curious, like will he just be more efficient with the time he does have with the Ducks? Like it will be that'll be what we're counting on.
Yes. Jeremiah Williams stay committed to Illinois from Iowa State. He did not play at Iowa State due to an Achilles injury. Always kind of interesting to see how players come back from that, but like, I don't even know, like, if he's healthy, like, gives him a solid like point guard option at least. Like, yeah, yeah, he's like a true point guard, and Illinois really doesn't have like true point guards on their roster necessarily. So if he can be healthy, he can give him some solid minutes, I think. Um, yeah. Moving on to who's left in the portal, and a few of them released their cut list, and also some of the schools kind of mentioned with them. So the first one we want to talk about is Zion Poland, who is down to Gonzaga, Michigan, Florida, Xavier, and LSU. Yeah, he's a good point guard from UC Riverside. Um, yeah. So, where do you think Poland should go? Let's do like where do we think these transfers should go?
Yeah. So Pardon me. I feel like I have a worst time. Like, felt like I had a sneeze coming on. This is like, again, this is all live. I thought I was gonna. Okay, I'm good. So anyway, I was getting choked up because Zion Pullen is like getting me emotional. He's such a good player still on the board. Yeah. So I think Florida would be a good spot. Like, just mutually, I think that'd be mutually beneficial. I mean, all of these Xavier, LSU are kind of up there for me too. But like the need is so stark at Michigan too. Like as we discussed. So like, but where would he be best off? It's to me for me, it's kind of a coin toss between. Like I just think he could be walking into a good situation at Xavier, but I mean I like Florida the most slightly.
Yeah,
So
I like Florida as well. I think he has minutes there and can be in a really good team. Xavier, I think they already have enough guards. I also think LSU has enough guards. Gonzaga could be one to watch because they lost Malachi Smith to the draft yesterday, so they have a spot.
and
The
that could make
Heat,
sense regionally too, going from UCR to Gonzaga. That could make sense
yeah,
if that's something that really matters to him. But yep.
yeah. I mean, Michigan also has spots, but they supposedly don't have NIL money, and I don't know who would really want to walk into Michigan where you have better opportunities next year. Like, yeah. Moving on to our next transfer, Mike Sheriff-Jams, known as Mongolian Mike, the first D1 Mongolian athlete, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he was at Dayton this past year and released his top five recently of Indiana, San Francisco, Pitt, Nebraska, and Memphis. Who do you see as the best fit for Mongolian Mike?
Good question. Good question. It's this one I'm not as certain of because it's a great lineup for him. I like just thinking about Dayton to Indiana, like that feels like that makes so much that makes sense, like just in an abstract sense. But I don't know that. I mean, Indiana is also just the best team. Like San Fran's always a team that's like very, very much in the thick of it in its conference. But I'm gonna stick with Indiana just because I don't know if it's necessarily like it absolutely clicks. I mean, you might think it does, but and when in doubt, I'm gonna go with the best team. And I just think I I just like Dayton. Like I like going from Flyer to Hoosier, but well, I'm iffy on this one. Unless you can't tell, I'm iffy on it because he's great. He's a great story too. So it's almost like in some ways, like in a selfish sense, it's a bummer he didn't have like one storybook start to finish college career story. But that's not always just realistic, right? Like that's not always realistic, and it's no slight to him. He's got great options to his credit. So, but in the end, I'll choose Indiana.
Yeah, my pick would probably be Pitt for Mongolian Mike. I think they just have the most to offer. They only have two other point guards on their roster. Neither have played a college game with incoming freshman Julian Lowe and Dior Johnson, who's I don't think he needs any introductions, but yeah, I think he could contribute right away. I think they could actually be pretty good with him with Hinton returning. Got some other decent transfers, so yeah, I think that would be a fun one if he were to go to Pitt. Um, let's see who else do we have. We have Arthur Kluma, who and the rest of these are not official cut lists as the first two were, but these are kind of lists like, well, these schools are considering this player. So Arthur Kaluma has been linked with Alabama, Texas, Texas Tech, and Kentucky. Um, I think my pick for him would be Alabama because they need front court guys. Like, and I think he could benefit with being in a system that just like I think like Alabama just loves to run, and I don't know. Kluma's an interesting player. Like he's solidly talented, but like when he starts dribbling, that's a disaster. Like nothing good ever happens from that. But Alabama just needs guys in the front court. There's minutes for him, and they have a good back court. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that was gonna you took that was gonna be my pick. Like just straight up, it was gonna be my pick. It like Kentucky. So like elsewhere in the SEC, like I did give thought to Kentucky because like they're all over the place. There are kind of
yeah,
vacancies there as we've kind of beaten that horse. So I think it goes to those two. So if I need to be different, I would go toward Big Blue, but I did justify Indiana a bit in my previous pick for Mike, Mongolian Mike. I with like just walking into a winning situation. You keep talking about winning players. Like for me, like if I'm matchmaking some of these transfers, like while you do want to look out for yourself, like also good to consider winning situations. So that'd be the case with Alabama for sure. But yeah, I think Alabama and Kentucky are kind of the combo there for me.
Yeah, we have Grant Nelson, who has been linked with Alabama, Baylor, Florida State, and Iowa. Um, I'm honestly personally on Grant Nelson, I'm not like super high on him as a player. Like I think he's a great summer league player, but people hype him up way too much because of his highlights. Like he's not going to be able to dominate power conference bigs the way he does to like summit league bigs, where like they don't play defense in the summit league. Like I mean, obviously with his size and athleticism, he's going to do that, but like I just don't think that all that stuff translates. But I still think he's a solid player. And I mean, it's hard not to say Alabama again because I mean, it's not a given they're getting Kaluma just because I say they are, so they could use him. I mean, all these schools could use him, honestly. Maybe Florida State. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Florida State has arguably the greatest need. Uh,
Yes, yes.
I it's Arkansas didn't. Is this an official? Remind me. I'm sorry. This official. Do we already have official final cut for him?
No, this is just the like what's
Okay,
kind of been.
because like play style wise, you could like argue Arkansas to like run the
Yeah, well,
floor like that.
Arkansas was linked to him, but I think they're not like really going after him anymore, from what I
Yeah,
heard.
the situation's changed for Arkansas too, just based on what's come in prior to the deadline, draft deadline, by way of
Yeah,
the portal for Arkansas. So, um, this is tricky too. Like Baylor, you included Baylor in this on our notes here. Like that, how much is Baylor? Like how much does the Baylor equation change for Grant Nelson now that Dennis is there? That's hard to figure. Like I'm not totally sure. Like, should
yeah.
that be a comedy? Like, I'm asking you, like, should that be like a combination? Like, do you think that would be a combo that works at Baylor if you added Grant Nelson to the Bears?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of who they have in the front court. They have Jalen Bridges, who's more of like a 3-4. Um, I mean that could work. I don't know. I don't know. I think I like Florida State the best
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Um,
North Dakota. One thing I do know about NDSU, there's again, this is going to be off topic for like 30 seconds. North Dakota State can recruit Florida on the football side, so there's some familiar. There got to be plenty of people at NDSU who are familiar with spots in Florida. There got to be some ties there. So if Grant Nelson goes to Florida State, I guarantee you he won't be like totally without like a contact or anything. Like obviously FSU be welcoming with open arms, but all I'm saying is just tossing it out there. It's not as random a pipeline as you would think. It's like that tie between Fargo, North Dakota, and the state of Florida. It's just something that's been built in the athletic department there. I feel like so. Maybe I'm overstating it, but it would be kind of funny if we see him in a good way. Like it would be, I think basketball wise, they FSU needs him more than he needs them. I mean, that's the kind of how it is with any player who's particularly in demand. And you have a school who's struggled on the court, who's in the mix with a bunch of other teams that have been actually been far more successful on the floor. But yeah, Nelson, that's one. I'm glad you listed him. It's one of my favorites because, of course, was a mid-major guy. I thought maybe he'd go to the draft, and yeah, very recently we learned that
yeah,
now we can reshift our focus.
he was kind of bad at the combine, honestly. So
Well,
not.
yeah. I
Mhm.
didn't want to bring that up. Yeah, you really gonna bring it up after spending all this time. It's true though. Big picture wise, yeah, that's something to think about too. Is maybe we could kind of read those tea leaves from the combine.
Yeah. Cam Spencer. Um, he's had visits scheduled. Miami. I think he took the Miami one already. UConn, Oklahoma, and UCLA. I like UConn because UConn needs him. I mean, I don't know if they like need him, but they kind of do need him. Because he just like fits perfectly like into a gap that they need, basically. So my pick would be UConn, but UCLA I would also not have a problem with.
Yeah, the when you look back to like the initial entry to the portal by Spencer, were there reports that verified that supposedly NIL money was like the motivating factor in his decision to leave the program?
Yes,
Like,
I believe that did come out.
okay, so now I'm like trying to think about like what's realistic, like which of the I guess it's and
I
how do
mean,
you like compare? Like
he's
at this
taking
point, like
visits to
Miami,
all these
UConn,
schools.
Oklahoma, UCLA, all those are going to be fine. Like
Like
Miami, especially, right? Has an
but like
NIL
he's
track record.
taking visits. Like these aren't just like who reached out. Like these are schools that
Right.
he's visiting, so he has to be
Yeah.
at least like okay with them on a surface level with like what he's gonna get there
Right.
if he's taking his time to visit.
If he's that supremely motivated by NIL, then my prediction would just be Miami.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
like
I mean I don't. There's probably some other stuff involved.
I'm not saying that's not nobody's going to the portal like realistically. Like you're a student and you're going from one school to another. Nobody's doing it for just one reason, but like
Miami does have
if there's
money.
one that's being reported on more than others, and then that one that's being reported on more than others is NIL, then I think NIL, I think Miami. Like not, and I'm not trying to
Mhm.
like that's not a bad thing about Miami per se, just based on how our setup in the college athletics landscape is right now. But
I mean, it
yeah,
made
but I
him get
love
to
that
the
you
Final Four.
yeah, we can actually talk about on the court too, rather than just this NIL sphere. Like Miami's got a good thing going. But so does UConn, and your choice of UConn I love because UConn we just talked about losing Sonogo, and the list goes on, and so Spencer, yeah, Spencer would, and that makes sense. Again, I love like regional transfers too. Like there's something about it, like Rutgers to UConn, that makes sense. Like that fits really neatly in my head. So, but my pick is Miami. Like at this point, my pick is Miami. But we'll see how we'll see. That's not I am hardly your top P6 crystal ball, but I did put some thought into it.
Right. We have Olivier Nakama, who also withdrew from the draft and is doing the through the portal stuff. The schools, I think he visited or at least like has been strongly linked to all these schools. K-State, Michigan, Baylor, Memphis, and West Virginia. I think I kind of like Kansas State, maybe Baylor. Like I think that's just in where he is needed. Um, yeah. Do you have any
Where he's needed. Well, you could say Michigan about that for
yeah,
anybody.
I don't want anyone to go to Michigan. No, that's just a dumpster fire.
You're needed at Michigan, Austin. You are needed. I'm gonna call Juwan right now. But no, seriously, like okay, but so okay, if you're taking that slant, like K State, I'll recommend K State to anybody after like with obviously a coach of the year. Like I recommend K State to anybody. And then what the only reason I would like, I guess obviously like I'm predicting you like straight away from West Virginia for this pick, just because that kind of feels like a full house at this point. Like,
Yeah, like he would probably come off the bench.
yeah,
So
well,
like
what more can be offered there to a prospective transfer at this point? Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. So I think path of least resistance to like possible PT would be between like Michigan and well, I guess no Michigan would just be it. Because especially with Baylor, we brought up Baylor had a big addition just today. So yeah,
I think he
yeah.
would still steal a lot of minutes at Baylor though. I mean,
Yeah,
different
well,
position. So
right. Baylor, our transfer portal tie team, Baylor, my tie team, Baylor. Yeah. But
yeah.
we have one
Yes.
last top transfer remaining in the portal you wanted to get into here.
We do, and it is David Jones of St. John's, who is considering Kentucky, Memphis, Xavier, Yukon, and Arkansas. I think Memphis maybe, but I could also see Kentucky just because Kentucky needs guys. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe Jones is a little bit inefficient, maybe not the best like team guy, but he's also kind of a bucket. So I don't know. He already visited Memphis. I believe he's visiting Xavier today, but like Xavier, like I don't know if that's the best fit for him with everyone they already have. So I would like to see him at Memphis.
I'd like to see him at Kentucky. Yeah, I'd like to see him at
Yeah,
Kentucky
I
because it's
mean,
about time. Okay. Maybe I'm answering the question a different way, but rather than like from a player POV, but it's about time Kentucky got like this is I just have a feeling this is gonna be one of the players Kentucky winds up with that we like who you were like pleading for like let's see it
yeah,
in action like I think the wheels are gonna turn finally for Kentucky when it comes to
they're
Jones but I
probably gonna get either Jones, Kluma, or both.
yeah some combination or can they sweep that
I
would
think
be
they
another one
could.
of our one of those portal turnarounds. Mm.
Yeah, still not sure if I love them even with those. I mean, no.
Mm.
They need Reeves to come back. They need
You're a
Reeves to come
first class
back.
Kentucky skeptic. You're like undefeated. No, but like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just like you are like dedicated to that. Like yeah,
Yeah,
probing them with a fine tooth comb.
I mean, right now, there's nothing to be like
Yeah,
super
yeah.
hyped up about with
Right,
them.
right. No, I think you're keeping a real perspective on it. Like I'm pulling your leg, but like it's like you're keeping a real perspective on it, which is there's not a lot in the existing coverage. So maybe David Jones is on the way. But I mean, it Kentucky's competing against like really good other good options like UConn. That makes sense. Like staying in the conference, like that makes sense. It's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight, but I think
Yeah,
it could be Kentucky in the end.
UConn could use him positionally as well, so that would not be a terrible fit. But yeah, now we're gonna just talk about like a few teams to give like a really short like summary of like where we think these teams are like after draft deadline, after the portal is basically washed up. And Texas, where do you think Texas is like right now? Like how do you think
Hmm.
they look?
Uh, you know, Texas. I passed over Texas for Tennessee when we were doing our winners in the draft, which was gosh, I'm trying to wrap back. Well, I was all the way at the beginning of this episode. But when I look at Texas, I think I'm going to like hold out. Like again, it's like first part of the segment. Let me just like deflect the question, but like you're going into we talked about the coaching hire, coming after the Chris Beard era. You get Rodney Terry. Like I kind of want to stand pat, see how it goes with Terry. They didn't like I don't think they Texas lost like really there were no, they lost a former interview of
They
mine, Rowan Brumball, but like I don't really think like I have to mention Rowan when I talk about Texas, but like
well
I don't think their losses are gonna be
they
too
lost
they're gonna
some old
preclude my
guys
success.
though.
But the Big 12, it's not my favorite Big 12 roster either. Like it's just kind of
Like A. Smith is really good, but like their other transfers, like Shrederick
yeah.
was like good at Virginia, but probably going to be an off the court issue because he didn't get benched for playing bad at Virginia. And their other two transfers are like just like okay. I like the guy from UT Arlington, but I don't know if I like him necessarily
Mhm.
at Texas. Shandal Weaver might have been a little bit big of a step up, and their two recruits decommitted. So this team will probably take them as far as A. Smith does, I think, and
And that I'll sign
Tyrese
up for
Hunter is
that. I'll
good
sign
too.
up for that any night of the week because I'll be a believer in
He's
him like
good.
as a player, but it's a lot. It's gonna be a lot to ask in the Big 12 night in night out.
He's good. Okay, how about Marquette? Uh they did lose Omax Prosper to the draft, but they got everyone back. Add a few solid freshmen, no transfers. So how much are you still like buying this team?
Well, I've got to recall. I'm trying to refresh my memory. How high was Marquette in your way too
I think
early?
I had them one.
Yeah, I was gonna say like couldn't have been higher than one, right? Like
No, it could not have been.
so they probably stay top five for me right now. I mean, you could have teams creeping up on Marquette at this point based on the updates we've had to the portal and the draft deadline, everything
How
with
big of a
Smith being
loss
out.
how big of a loss do you think Prosper is?
It's it's gonna be meaningful. It's gonna be meaningful. Like it's hard, but the fact that was the sole like starter that you really are seeing head out the door, like Kolak's back, the overall like Shaka bringing back a majority of starters, I'm gonna ride with more times than not.
Yeah.
Like I just think
He-
that's key. And Marquette, like, is it fair to say over like there was a bit of overachieving going on too, right? Like I guess they could be a regression candidate if you like are a glass half empty kind of guy, but I'd say there could be there's also the flip side of that is it's onward and upward for them at this rate.
Yeah.
Now they won't be sneaking up on as many teams early in the season by any stretch, but yeah, I think you can still make a fine case that they stay in the top five of a preseason throughout the summer, at least
Yeah.
the way it stacks up now.
Yeah, Shaka can really develop as well. And yeah, now moving on to UCLA, they have like they're just getting all the international guys because they have Ivo Simovic, who is like the best international recruiter. He was the one who got like Santi Aldama to Loyola Maryland. He had Philip Petrusev committed to Hartford for a point in time, so that's pretty notable. But yeah, so he's getting all these like international guys. I know they're supposed to get a guy Edey Mara who's supposed to be like the best out of the bunch, but like I don't love what UCLA has really right now. Like it's solid, but like nothing
Yeah,
that's blowing me away.
it's not stacking up to USC. It
Mhm.
isn't. Like Isaiah Collier, Bronny, this just to name a couple, off the top. So yeah, I think I talk about Michigan State in a combination many times, like, and
UCLA
similarly
is still going to
USC,
be
UCLA, like UCLA is gonna like just have a hard time with the Los Angeles Times headlines. Like it's gonna be all USC. Like, and I talk about those too. And like, hey, yeah, they deserve analysis on their own, like independently, but they're going to the Big Ten together too. Like they're at the hip to me. So yeah, I think especially when you look at UCLA through the lens of USC, like I'm kind of tempered a little bit as far as the expectations go because I know I'm going to wind up watching more of USC. This is like, to be honest.
yeah. I mean, UCLA is still going to be like good though. Like Michigan might just be terrible. Like
Yeah,
I think
it's
you
not. It's a comparison in terms of the rivalry and the in-state and all that, or in-city for these two, USC and UCLA. Yeah, that's not to say UCLA is in such a position as Michigan, but yeah, it's probably honestly when I talk about USC, it could make UCLA through no fault of its own a bit of more of a sleeper than it should be, which could be interesting.
yes. Kansas. Do you have Kansas 1 right now in your rankings?
If Kansas isn't one, like who would you put at one who isn't Kansas? Like I think it probably would be Kansas.
Yeah, but
I think it would be Kansas.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, when you look at who they have DeJuan Harris, who's just like a
Yeah.
great like pass first point guard. Like you have him playing with Hunter Dickinson. That's a great match.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got Kevin McCullough back at like the 3. You got KJ Adams still. Kevin McCullough back was huge. Like I thought he was gonna be gone, but then he's like, "Well, I'm back." Like I did not see that coming, and Kansas was probably maybe number 1 going into that, and they for sure were after. You got Morris and Timberlake at the shooting guard, and like this is really good. This is a really good team.
Yeah, I will probably even hold off till we get to the end of the episode here with the top 5 teams too. Like I know we're that's on the agenda, so I'll even
Yes.
dash it for Kansas. But we are kind of teasing there being possible number 1 spot.
Yes. UConn. We kind of already talked about UConn in the fact that they might not be like that great. They lost a lot of guys. They didn't get anyone from the portal yet. Maybe Spencer. Stephon Castle was a really highly regarded freshman, but like, and I think Klingon could do what Snogo did. Like he could be really good, but I still like UConn, but they're not like a top 5 to 10 team for me anymore.
Hmm. I like not in the top 10 anymore too. Like
They're
yeah,
still good, but
yeah. I wouldn't rule them out, like rule out late in the summer, like UConn like climbing back in the top 10, partially just based on benefit of doubt of defending champion. And like as soon as UConn makes maybe a pickup with some of the available transfers we talked about a minute ago, the kind of the temperature we have on UConn could change. But yeah, I think that could be I still think could be back end top 10. But maybe I'm being too
potentially.
heavily swayed by my East Coast neighbor or by the recent title, like all the above could be at play. Worth acknowledging. But no, I think yeah, I think that's fair. I think especially like just when you look at certain ascending teams too, like Mar- Marquette's in the top 5 mix. I still think we talk about Kansas ascending, Michigan State ascending. Like there's only so much room to stay in to cling to a top 10 spot if you're not like making as many moves.
Yes. Arizona, we already kind of touched on them quite a bit with the Caleb Bluff stuff, but they should be a solid team. I mean, you have Omar Ballo, who's really dominant inside coming back. Kylan Boswell could be definitely will be a breakout guy. Yeah, so I think this team is solidly built to compete with USC atop the Pac-12. I mean, we already talked about them enough. That's just all I have to say on Arizona. Moving forward to Cincinnati, who Loki kind of has some like talent. Like they could be solid. They obviously got Aziz Bendigo the other week, and that's going to be really interesting to see if he's eligible or not because he was like pushing the mental health uh for like he was pushing like that's why he entered the portal. So if he doesn't get a waiver for mental health, then I wouldn't think anyone would. So, but besides him, I mean, like they had a decent portal class with like Lukosius. They also got Jameel Reynolds, who's another center. They have like four centers. Like they have obviously those two, Victor Locken and Odi Oguama. Like just send one of those guys to team who needs a center. Like Mizzou needs a center. I actually saw they had Connor Vanover visiting yesterday, I think, but like to just like send like Odi Oguama to Missouri and get like uh, Kurt Lewis in return. Like who says no?
Yeah, set up the trade. Set up the old college trade. Couldn't that I'm sure in a perfect world, that you do see two winners coming out of that. But yeah, no, Wes Miller, this is it's his team now, right? So like there's momentum here. Cincinnati's what are they? I saw a headline recently. They're wearing Jordan brand now. They yeah, the whole athletic department switched to a Nike Jordan accommodation. So they're
Okay.
look good, feel good, play good. They're rocking Jordan in practice. And yeah, so it's yeah, I think your observations are good. And it is kind of a situation where we wait for that waiver because you would figure that will be will be granted, but I hate to forecast the forecasting NCAA decisions is probably a fool's errand for this podcast and for most others. So, but yes, in all, Cincinnati has momentum.
Yes. Alabama, they do not really have a front court right now. Their backcourt is amazing. You got Mark Sears, Aaron Estrada, Latrell Wrightsell, Rylan Griffin. But their front court, the only players like in like that are like forwards slash bigs are Nick Pringle, Sam Walters, and Mohamed Diabate. Like, and none of them are really proven. Obviously, Walters and Diabate are freshmen. Pringle like didn't really play. I kind of like Pringle, but like he didn't play that much. Like, there's no guarantee that he's. I mean, I think he'll be solid, but like is he like you're like they really got hurt with Bediako staying in the draft because he's I don't know why he stayed in the draft because I don't think he's an NBA player. Like he's just
Yeah, could have used
like
another year.
he's a defensive anchor. Like that's what he was this Alabama team. And I don't think his skills really translate. Like he's athletic. He's like I don't know. He would have been much better off, in my opinion, staying at Alabama. So how they
Uh,
need a forward. They need some
they
forwards.
do just to like for the balance of the roster and just when you're on the floor, that competitive balance. I still top 15. I mean, or it could be even if you're just outside the top 15 as it stands now, can still work your way back in. Like Alabama should still be active, right? Like we talked about Alabama being linked to Grant Nelson like that, or like in the mix, like speculatively. That wouldn't fix your forward spot though. I mean, you look more toward Kaluma for that, but I yeah, Alabama had such a good year. Like I know there was again, we bring up off the floor, there was a whole distraction, but like okay, back on the floor,
And number one seed.
Alabama was great last season, and of course, like it's a guard's game, right? Like if we're being honest, like not to beat around the bush, but like I think if you're gonna be strong at one singular position, like may as well, like that's a great place to start. Like where they are, the backcourt looks
Yeah.
really good, and
But
Estrada, I'm so
you
excited
need
to see
some
Estrada too in
forwards.
SEC gyms because I've watched Estrada in person so many times, and I'm just like, so thrilled to watch him on national P6 for coverage because he's gonna follow through. He'll be worth the price of admission.
Yeah, their backcourt is amazing. They also got JQ back yesterday, but you need some forwards. You
Yeah,
can't
I mean,
just
I don't
win
want to minimize it.
only
Like,
on
it's not
guards.
like you can get away with just being barren there, but I don't think they will. I don't think when it's all said and done, I don't think when it's all said and done, they will be. Like, that's a big difference for me. I think they're gonna rectify it.
Yeah. Another school that I really like is Xavier. I think they're just really good all over. You obviously have the Conference USA backcourt of Davion McKnight and Quincy Oliveri. I mean, Soleil Boom was really good last year, so I think they're trying to go down that path. They also had a Conference USA center in Abu Usman, who's like the perfect complement with Zach Fremantle. They also have like Jerome Hunter coming back, who was he was probably going to be he's probably going to be their sixth man this year, but he's like really he was really good last year. Had a kind of a breakout year for him. You got some guys coming back like Desmond Claude, who I like. I really like their incoming freshman point guard Trey Green. So yeah, I just really like where his team is, and I think I like them a lot more than I've seen a lot of people saying. So yeah, Xavier's a team that I really like for next season.
Yeah, a big part of it is they were certainly in the picture for a winner in our transfer discussion, winners and losers. So it and I do who you have who I don't believe I discussed it. I considered picking them, but I'm losing track already. We didn't end up picking them, but they were easily in the
Yeah,
mix. Like it's
they were a
certainly
winner.
worthy of their recognition, and for all the reasons you just described. And I feel like it's a team. I feel like it's a team that can get lost in the Big East shuffle sometimes. Like UConn's defending champion of the country and everything, but Xavier, like I don't think we'd be surprised if they finished on the top of the. Like I know Marquette, we talked about lagged about, but they're going to be right there. Creighton, Xavier, Marquette, like that. Xavier's with the offseason it's had.
Villanova.
It's not what's the Villanova with Villanova on the come up with Burton. Like it's not like it's going to be crowded at the top, but Xavier should stay like in that. Like they should be a top 3 seed in the Big East tournament, unless I'm missing out.
I
Like
mean, like the Big East is just so good. Like they could be like a top like 15, 20 team and not be in the top three in the Big East.
yeah, so it's not mutually exclusive. That's a good point to make. It's like, look, like we talk about the Big 12 that kind of way. The Big East can stack up similarly with the depth of nationally ranked teams, and you can. There's only so many rooms. There's only so much room to have a favorable conference tournament spot. But yeah, Xavier is going to be. Like think about the city of Cincinnati. Xavier and UC both. Like they're getting optimistic looks here in our discussion. So that's got to say something about if you're in the Cincinnati area, you should have some good college basketball to watch. It's what I'm getting, right?
Yes. Maybe some Northern Kentucky action in too.
Oh yes, that they're not far. I learned that. I was in Kentucky. Well, I was in Cincinnati the other summer, and yeah, they're very close. Easy driver. I recommend it. Pretty good drive to a nice arena at NKU. Just to put that out there.
Yes. Baylor. I mean, we already kind of touched on them a lot, but like, yeah, I think they should be good. They have some good freshmen coming in, and you pair that with obviously Ray J. Who else do they have back? Trying to think of who they even have. I mean, they lost Flake. They lost Carter. They have who do they have back? I'm trying to think because I'm just blanking right now. Um, Baylor.
I mean, they're
They,
really in a lot of ways just kind of they started over a bit.
yeah, Jalen Bridges. Um, yeah, yeah, they really have a lot of incoming guys. They have Langston Love, who maybe could be in for a bigger impact. Yeah, I don't know what I think about this team. It's a lot of like I think there could be a very wide range of outcomes, but I also really like Scott Drew. Obviously, I like some of these guys that they have in their team. I sort of like Josh Ojianwuna for a little bit of breakout year. So yeah, I'm still kind of cautious, but I think this team will be decent.
Yeah, Ray J changed everything. Probably solidified more like top 20 vibes for him. And yeah, the Big 12 is such a crapshoot, but like in a positive way. Like I said, in a great like as far as again praising the league. Uh, yeah, the Dennis takes a lot of like pressure off of Jaden Nunn, the VCU transfer. Like again, like Nunn like isn't known for the like again wasn't known for the offensive side to begin with, but like other than like the 3-point side, but that, adding Dennis totally changes the complexion. So it's
Yes.
that again. We probably circle back to that many times, but that's really the headliner here for Baylor, right? Like there's still a lot of uncertainty, but at least you have like a headliner guy. You can this is gonna be the face of the new stage in Baylor basketball.
Yes. Arkansas is a school we also kind of touched on a little bit earlier. But yeah, like I don't know if I love this team. Like but I do love Muss, so it's kind of like a little conflicting in that way. Um, yeah, they did get Devo Davis back yesterday. They did lose Jordan Walsh, which would have been huge to have back. But yeah, I I think Muss will make them like good by March. They might not be good right away, as we've seen
Yeah.
what happened with Arkansas the past few years.
Yeah, it's a good
And
distinction. Like, right, like as we're thinking about these preseason rankings, like, well, they're not as projective, right? Like if we were totally projective, we'd say how good will you be by the end of February going into March? And like then you really would be thinking about coaching probably a lot more too. And we'd go back to Muss and all the above. So yeah, Arkansas, I like you can only squeeze so many Big 12 teams into a top 25, like realistically, but um yeah, by the end over the course of the season, they'll be right there. They'll be right there. It won't come as any surprise. Even, like I know Baylor probably starts ranked ahead of them, I would think.
Arkansas is not in the Big 12.
Oh, my bad. Why am I talking about that? SEC. SEC. Why am I saying that? I don't know why I'm saying that.
We've been
That
going for a while.
that makes no sense. Why am I picturing Arkansas? I'm not trying to start a conference realignment rumor. I don't know literally why I said Arkansas the Big 12. But maybe it's because I think I was honestly picturing Arkansas as like playing. I was like playing Arkansas highlights in my head, like dead ass is what I was doing. And I was like, oh crap, it felt like a Big 12 team to me. I don't know why. It just looked like it. Anyway, regardless of that, SEC still has plenty of good top 25 teams too. Can't fit everybody from SEC in there. Same argument applies. But by the end of the year, circling back to what I'm actually trying to get at, and as you're alluding to, by the end of the year, they'll be there. And Arkansas is another one. Similarly to Alabama, Arkansas could have more to do. We talk about David Jones in Arkansas being possible connection, could wind up that way. So I'm not, yeah, Arkansas. If you want to put your faith in, like, you seem to be like, I mean, I poked at your Kentucky like skepticism, but like we generally have like an Arkansas optimism, I feel like tonight. So why not just stick with that theme?
Yeah, I really like Trevon Brazile too. Like, it's a shame that we didn't get to see a full season of him healthy, but I really hope we can get that this upcoming year because he is really good. Moving on to Indiana, a team that will be one to watch for good or bad reason. I guess it could turn out different ways, but I mean, it'll be fun to watch because they have Xavier Johnson. Their starting lineup is Xavier Johnson, Trey Galloway, Mackenzie Mbako, Malik Renew, and Khalil Ware, which I'm not sure if this is as good as some people are making it out to be, but it'll be interesting because there's like a lot of personalities I feel like in that lineup, and it could be really good, but I don't know. How good do you think Indiana will end up being?
It's trick. Indiana kind of reminds me. Okay, now I'm gonna like reestablish my credibility with the listeners. Remind everybody that I do know about like conferences. Yeah, so Indiana and Northwestern, they're both the Big Ten. All right, we're piecing it back together now. I think both like it kind of reminds me of the Northwestern situation. It's not totally the same. I'm just leading up to the point of maybe each is a candidate to take like a some degree of a step back. Um, but like I think there's still a safe floor for Indiana. Like they're probably going to find their way to being on the bubble, right? Like, do you think
Uh,
so, or is that like,
yeah, worse. Or I feel like there's just so many range of outcomes because Chloe Ware could be like amazing, or he could just be the same that he was. Like Malik Renew could be really good, could be a breakout player, or he could just not be a breakout player. Mackenzie Mbako could be like some amazing freshman, or he could have like could be not that good. Like Trey Galloway, I think we kind of know what we're getting out of him. Xavier Johnson also could be unpredictable at times. So there's just so many range of outcomes. Like they could be anywhere, and it will be interesting to watch.
yeah, there's no doubt. One of the great, I mean, needless to say, like one of the great home court advantages in college basketball, Mongolian Mike being there. Talk about him. If he were
Yeah,
there,
that
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 would
is
be
a
electric.
possibility.
Like that would be electric. Like I could just picture that right now. Like if he walks into that again, I kind of was pounding the table about that a little bit ago. But anyway, that would make me maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would still appreciate top 25 rank him though. It's it we should divide the summer into segments, and have like, all right, check in with me at the 4th of July, see like how much basically the month of June affected things, like because it's it's almost too soon to call, but I can't cut out of it fully. I'll say like Indiana will probably regress, but not to the point of being beyond the
Yeah.
bubble, being
Yeah, I
outside
mean,
the scope of the bubble.
they lost
They
Trace
lost so much.
among other guys, but like he was one of their best players
Yeah,
ever. So like he
yeah.
they're not just gonna continue on like nothing happened. But but moving on to North Carolina, this is our last team that we're gonna be kind of assessing where they are right now. And we talked about him getting Cadeau. So that helps a lot. And I'm sort of in on them. Like as a top 20-ish team, like RJ Davis is good, Baycott's good. I'm not sold on Harrison Ingram. I actually don't know if he's that good personally, but he has potential. Um, Cormac Ryan is a very solid role player. I'm I don't know about Hubert Davis though. Like I don't think he's that good of a coach, but I think they should be good enough to make it. They'll make tournament this year, I think. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Tar Heels?
Yeah, the reclassification was enormous, and you add that to like having like those pillars of the team already in place, Davis and Baycott. Like I really like that, like the balance of that. Getting Ryan from Notre Dame like fits the role really perfectly. Like I feel like that was like real. Like this roster, I think is coming together in a way that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, and just the way North Carolina ended this past March, like they're so in line for a bounce back. Like it it was so strange to like the way it all shook out. Like I'm recalling correctly at this point, North Carolina, uh, how do you describe it? I guess like opted out of the NIT of
Yeah.
like accepting an NIT bid. So like
Yeah.
right. So like I just think a program with like the pedigree of North Carolina, like having that on its heels, no pun intended, like coming off of that, like it's going to be looking to like cleanse its palate and like because if you're saying you're going to turn down an NIT invite, like being in the NIT is like, of course, you prefer to be in the big dance, but like being in the NIT is still like an honor. Or like calling it an honor sounds corny, but like it's nothing to sneeze at. So to me, North
Like
Carolina put in a lot of its
NIT
chips.
teams are so good. Like in the
Yeah, they're
grand
still
scheme
they're
of
good teams.
things,
If you're in the NIT, you're not playing some like scrubs or anything like that. So what I'm getting at is by bypassing the NIT, by saying no thanks to the NIT, you're pushing your chips on the table that you're going to make the NCAA tournament the following year, right? So like I think that I think that's a storyline that hangs over, not hangs over in a negative way necessarily, but it's a story that we can kind of think about in the back of our minds as we're kind of watching the heels. So I think with that though, having said that, they have the pieces where it's fitting together to a point where I'm confident they will follow through on that and make the NCAA tournament.
they don't have Caleb Love either. So
Yeah,
that
but see, the way you're
increases
talking
their
about Love and his
chances.
lack of efficiency makes it sound like you're like, oh, we don't have him either. That's convenient. That's fine.
Well,
But it sometimes it could simplify things a little bit. Like it could simplify some things. It could be that both Love and UNC find their way like after that split.
yeah, that definitely could happen. But yeah, are we to our top five rankings now? Do you want to go like one by one, or just list our whole top five, or how do we want to do this?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, we can just let's just we're getting late in the show. I can knock out like number one at least. Like I can share number one, and then I can have you share number one. Like for me, Kansas, I like
Yeah,
talked about it before. Like Duke, like may have been like even like at earlier times this summer or earlier this spring, like could have been like so you can still make that plenty of that case.
yes.
But it's tight. It's tight. But a guy from Towson went to Kansas. Like, come on, it's gonna be it's gonna be Kansas for me at this
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I had Kansas at one as well. Who'd you have it to?
I thought you were gonna. I thought we were gonna snake. I thought you were gonna go with two,
Oh
like
well,
off the
I
bat.
guess I'll go
To
with
be
two.
honest.
I have Purdue. I
Hmm.
think some people are underrating them a little bit nationally, but they were a one seed getting basically everyone back, and some of their really important pieces were freshmen. And sophomore jump is a real thing, so I think they'll be in just as good of a position, if not better, than they were last year. I mean, getting a national player of the year back, like you couldn't really ask for anything else.
Yeah, yeah, transformational to be able to lean on Edey once more. I like that for number two. Do I have the do I have the guts to diverge from that? I mean, I did mention Duke earlier, like top four scorers back. Purdue, like it's tight. It's tight. It's toss up. Do I have the I mean, and like again, we talk about like how the roster shapes up at UNC, like it all fits together. Duke's recruiting class is top notch. So I'm gonna go with Duke. I'm gonna stop dancing around the issue. I'll go with Duke at two. At this stage, I think that run it back, especially we're like forgetting it, like, hey, like it's still early in the John Shire era, like it's all coming, it's gonna keep building. Like he's got his own mark. The program certainly walked back into a great situation, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with Duke here too. It's
All right.
tempting though to go with Purdue because Purdue, I feel like Purdue has so much newfound momentum, like just from being able to say exhale and say, okay, we have our rock in the middle and Edey back, like that's so big. Like I think that has a lot of mental wellness effect for Purdue and its program and its fans too.
Yes. So I guess you can go right ahead with three then if
Yeah,
we're
because that feeds into three. Like I'm put Purdue at three. Like
yeah.
Purdue can't be later than three at this point for what I just went into saying.
Okay. Well, in that case, I have Duke at three. Um, I'm not completely sold on them because I don't have like a rim protector like I was mentioning earlier. Like they were really good because Lively was that guy towards the end of last year, but obviously he's gone to the NBA. So, but with that being said, like Proctor is going to be really good. Filipowski is obviously going to be really good. Roach should be solid combined with the freshmen they have. Like I think they will still be in some decent position for next year. So I guess I'll just go into my four, which is Creighton. I don't know if I have too high a possible bias, but like I don't see many better starting fives in the country. I mean, I know the bench is a little bit of a question, but you really want to have a good starting five. Like bench is kind of a second priority. Like Ryan Kalkbrenner, one of the best big guys in the country, super efficient, super good on both sides of the ball. Point guard, you got Stephen Ashworth, arguably the best shooter in the country, has been the best player on that large team. So I mean, he's legit. Trey Alexander, potential like first round lottery pick next year, can really score the ball, can really shoot, can should play great with Ashworth. Um, yeah, him with Ashworth because Ashworth does not really like he's more of a shooter than Nemhard was and less of like a driver. So maybe that'll give Alexander space to like create some stuff more, which he's pretty solid at. You got Shireman. Shireman's a really winning player, can shoot the ball, can kind of does a little bit of everything, honestly. And then the more question mark is at the four where they have Isaac Trout likely starting, but I really like Trout's game in high school. I mean, Tony Bennett was a huge fan of him committing, which is why I went to Virginia. So like, if Tony Bennett really likes him, he's probably going to be good. I think he fits in well with what this Creighton team is building. So yeah,
I hear you. I hear you. You have plenty of defense for your pick of Creighton. I get it. I thought maybe they'd be like five for you rather than like at this point, but so yeah, I like it. I like it. But I'm gonna go to. I'm at four now. We're at four all of a sudden. Go to Michigan State. Michigan State gets Tyson Walker and Malik Hall back, take advantage of additional eligibility with the free no eligibility used in the COVID-19 peak COVID year of the academic year. So yeah, combine that with, and I kind of talked about it when I was comparing Sparty with Michigan. Xavier Booker's a 5-star, number 7 in the top 100 by ESPN. You're bringing back the top scoring minus Joey Hauser. They already went to the Sweet 16 this past March. Like I just think it's going to be one of the best rosters in the Big Ten, right there with Purdue. Like, I mean, by roster, I mean like guys who are getting regular minutes roster.
I
So
think the Big Ten is a two-horse race.
yeah, it comes down to these two in a lot of ways. So, I'm going to slot MSU into four for me.
All right, well, I guess you can go on to number five now.
Number five, I have to stick to my word. I said Marquette would not follow the top five, so I'm going to stick with Marquette at five. Like, and it talked about Marquette not long ago. They lose Prosper, but I mean, so many relevant players are back for Shaka Smart, and it's just an ascending team. It's an ascending team. Great market, great support. So, yeah, I like Marquette a lot. It's almost like we just got. I feel like we just got done talking about Marquette, but I'm going to circle back to them in number five. I mean, it's tricky to like, you're almost like I'm almost tempted to look at teams like Creighton, like Miami, too. Like that Miami's on the board here. Florida Atlantic, like you're sticking Florida. But yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with Marquette despite those temptations.
Yes. I also have Marquette at 5. I mean, for all those same reasons. And another thing that I might add, something to look at. I think Ben Gold could be kind of good. I kind of like him and Chase Ross. I kind of like some potential breakouts from their incoming sophomores. And yeah, I'm interested to see what David Joplin, how good of a starter he is, and if he's maybe he can play Ben Gold there. I mean, it's kind of assumed that Joplin's going to take Omac's role, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if we see like Ben Gold kind of get more minutes as season goes. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Some other teams strongly in consideration: Michigan State. I considered Tennessee as well. They got Josiah Jordan James back yesterday, which was also a surprise. I don't think we mentioned that earlier, but yeah, those were some of the teams that just missed the cut. So, any more comments about the top fives?
I like it. I like it. I think we differ enough, but we also have we found we found some common ground, so that's great. Um, yeah, I think that was fun. Fun to kind of think about that. I like there's some teams who are well outside, like just looking at the bigger picture, like teams who you wouldn't consider for the top five, but it's kind of interesting to think about how close they could be to top 10 range. Like
Mhm.
even USC, like USC, are they really far from top 10? Like I guess that might be a bit more of a projection, like by season's end situation. But yeah, I think a bunch of great names we covered.
Yeah. So that kind of concludes the meat of our podcast, but I do want to talk about the training camp roster for the U19 team was released. I know a few episodes back we kind of were talking about if there was a U19 this summer. Well, there is, and U19 is fun because a lot of these players are in college, already in college. Last U19 year, I remember Kenneth Lofton was a really good player on that team. They had Chet. And yeah, it's also a good opportunity to see some prospects. So do you have the list pulled up? Um, with players pulled up. I mean, I have it on mine, but you might need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see the list. Yeah. So some guys, I mean, this isn't even a roster. Like they make cuts based on who's good, but some
Mhm.
guys I would like to see. Um, let's see. Toby Awaka, I do like him as a breakout guy for Tennessee. Maybe same with Freddie DeLeone, who is those two guys. DeLeone might start for Tennessee, while Ziegler is still recovering from his
Mhm.
ACL injury, I believe it was. Um, Kylan Boswell, I really like him. Um, Interested to see how good Clell Ware can be if he improves upon his motor. Um, I'm uh talking about the incoming guys. I'm really interested to see if Jackson Shellstat is able to make this team. I really like him. I think he's Oregon's best freshman, even though their recruiting rankings might not necessarily agree with that. Um, Cody Williams for Colorado. I'm interested to see if he can make the team because Colorado's a team I'm sort of high on and want to know if he's actually that good. Any guys you're looking at, I mean, maybe to make the team or are higher on than maybe the consensus on this training camp roster?
Yeah, I hadn't been able to gotten a chance to break down this roster too much until really as we got closer and closer to the podcast. Yeah, I'm keeping an open mind. I don't really feel too strongly about anybody particularly under the radar. I was also kind of curious about even beyond I mean, the players are what we're really looking at, but it's always kind of interesting to see who the like coaches are, like support coaches, in this training camp. And I guess Micah Shrewsbury from Notre Dame is probably one of the biggest names. Thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, he's an ascending coach. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be able to work with these guys in a team in a USA basketball setting. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is just in the abstract. And so again, I didn't have a player I thought particularly was gonna be flying under the radar. But I love this. I love that it's a mixture of again, you have it's U19, so you have some guys who are at that age where they've just finished off freshman year, and then the classes of 2023 and 24. It makes for great trivia years down the line, like how these guys overlap a little bit. But it's a great collection of names. even like the class of 2024, it's harder to tell like as of right now like who's going to be. I almost just kind of want to see what the reports are out of the camp,
Yeah.
see how it shakes out for these
Yeah, I
guys.
mean,
But
there are still cuts to be made. Like we will
yeah,
talk about this a lot more like once we get like a roster, once U19
yeah,
actually happens, like I am really interested to see like I don't even know like who's good for other countries, but like sometimes it's a good way to I mean, obviously we saw Wembanyama last U19,
right.
but like I'm trying to think of who else have risen. I mean, Edey, but like Nemhard was really good, and that was like for Canada, obviously. And that was like kind of when everyone started to put their stock in him, despite being just like a normal 4 star, like maybe not even top 100. Like I feel like that was a good turning point. I mean, he was good during high school season too, but at Montverde. But like, yeah, sometimes it's kind of good to like kind of a preview almost of some guys, and
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it is a bit of it's so much good on good competition in the camp, and I want I started to see like okay, it is so hard to compare these guys when you have the pre-cut roster, but I mentioned Shrewsbury, coach on the support staff for this USA basketball group, and one of his recently, I guess now rising sophomore players, Van Allen Lubin's going to be down there. That's kind of interesting. Like, could help to have a very familiar like face there together for each of them. It could be beneficial for each of them. I mean, as a freshman year, what did he play? I'm trying to make sure I didn't think he played more than 20 minutes a game. It was just over 17 minutes a game. Was efficient, got
he's at
involved in rebounding.
Vanderbilt now. Lubin, is that what you're
What
talking about?
he moved to Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Oh, well, that could make for awkward. I completely missed that.
Yeah,
How did I
it
miss
was
that?
recent. It was
It
sort
was
of
recent.
recent.
All right, because I'm gonna be hitting my I'm gonna be kicking myself if I missed that. That could be then I that toss out the window. That is not the same. There's not the same benefit of being with Shrewsbury. But Shrewsbury's still a great coach, and Lubin still has upside. And so when he did
Yeah.
play Notre Dame, his numbers were still. I still think they shaped up well for shooting efficiency and rebounding. But it wasn't like he wasn't you know he wasn't an everyday player or like everyday starter for Notre Dame. So that helps explain the transfer. But I completely missed that. I legitimately thought that's so neat. Van Allen Lubin's going to be with Michael Shrewsbury, and now reality check, he's not. So my apologies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it looks like it will be in Hungary from June
Yeah.
24th to July 2nd. So not too far away. It'll definitely make for some good TV, like in the middle of the summer when there's like no basketball on. Well, there's basketball for a week, and it'll be good basketball to watch. So yeah. I mean, I guess that's an episode. Do you have anything more on anything that we've talked about? Quick hits to end it?
I can reaffirm everybody that Arkansas is in fact in the SEC and that Lubin is in fact also in the SEC now at Vanderbilt. As far as my two SEC absolute brain farts, and I can remind everybody that Lubin, as long as we're again giving him his due, now that I've completely screwed up his transfer at school, he was 4 stars originally. Like these, you can see why he was he's a name for USA basketball U19. But all in all, this is a good time, man. It took too long. Took too long on my end to get it all right, finish up the long semester at school. It was good to reconnect with you, buddy, and yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, well, if you're still listening to this podcast, make sure to give it 5 stars on wherever you're listening to, or even if you're watching it on YouTube, which is a thing, hit that like button. We really appreciate it for every like, 5 star rating, comment. It all really helps us out. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we will try to have another episode out soon.